All right, I think we're live again, and prayerfully we'll have it together this time. So let me get over here, and I'm gonna let you guys come in. I do apologize. I had to I had to delete and re-download this program on my computer because this XSplit program I told you guys about, because it wasn't working, and now I guess I'm still having to go through the bugs, but it looks like we are live. So I want to give you guys time to come in. Understand this, guys, if you're coming in and you're not saying anything, it may show me that 0 people are watching, so I don't know that we're live. Well, I see that we're live, but I don't know that you guys are coming in. When you start making comments, that lets me know. Thank you, Sister Amanda. Thank you. Happy fall. When you guys start making comments, that lets me know that you're in. So don't be a passive watcher. Just try to make sure that you let me know that you're here. Hey, thank you. And see, it shows me, because you're responding, it shows me one person is watching, but I know that a lot of times when it does that, there are more people watching. It's done that to me many times. So I don't want to belabor the point. I don't want to drag the video on. I want to go straight to it. I want to start talking to you guys about narcissism and the Jezebel spirit. Narcissism and the Jezebel spirit. And let me go ahead and say this. I'm going to turn around and relabel this video. So I'm going to change it to part 1. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do a part 2 or what have you. But part 1, I just want to give you guys some characteristics. I want to just kind of bless you with some information about that particular spirit. And then part 2, we'll do part 2 next week, and I'll come out and I'll give you a lot of information about how to overcome that spirit. I'm going to give you some information. And so today we're going to be dealing with identifiers. I'm going to talk to you guys about characteristics of the Jezebel spirit. So first and foremost, let me go ahead and say this. This is something that a lot of people don't realize. I think a lot of people are coming into the knowledge of this, but a lot of people don't realize that the Jezebel spirit and the narcissist is one and the same. As a matter of fact, the word narcissism is just a secular term for the Jezebel spirit. Of course, people in the world, they don't identify things by spirits. They identify certain traits, characteristics, and personalities. And that's how they categorize different disorders. And so they can say a person who exhibits these traits, these characteristics, people who tend to have these type of personalities are have borderline personality disorder, or maybe narcissistic, or they may have schizophrenia or something like that. That's how they categorize. They look at certain traits. And this is exactly what God told us to do. He told us to test the spirit. And so in every spirit, you'll find that every demonic spirit or every demonic entity has certain traits, has certain personalities. And that's how we're able to identify those spirits. That's how we're able to identify those spirits. We look for the traits. We look for the different things that are in the personality. So what we're going to be dealing with again today is narcissism and the Jezebel spirit. So again, when we say the word narcissism, all we're really saying, now if we say it in the church, if they say it in the world, if they say narcissism, they're just talking about a disorder. And typically with a disorder in the world, they prescribe medicine and therapy and stuff like that. However, in the church, we prescribe therapy, but we also prescribe deliverance. Matter of fact, we oftentimes try to introduce the person to deliverance counseling. I'm thinking about a trait right now that I didn't write down of the Jezebel spirit. So let me make sure I write that down. Okay. But we have a tendency to categorize them by their personalities and certain traits, characteristics, some of the things that they do. But we always prescribe deliverance. And so one of the things I often introduce people to when it comes to deliverance, because a lot of people don't understand, people think that if I bring, for example, if I'm married to a man who has the Jezebel spirit, if I bring him to church, the pastor should be able to cast the Jezebel spirit out of the man. And while that may be true, if that man doesn't want that spirit, you don't cast out a demon that the person wants to keep, because they're not going to manifest. As a matter of fact, a lot of women, and I think that one of these days, I may want to sit down and just, once I relaunch AnointedFire magazine, is just interview some women who have and even interview some men who have wives who have the Jezebel spirit, and they'll tell you they took him to church and they finally convinced him to go to the altar. But what surprised the woman that her husband didn't manifest, or what surprised the man was that his wife didn't manifest. And so a lot of times they'll sit there and they'll be like, okay, so I don't get it. I took him to the altar. I convinced him. I finally convinced him to go to the altar with me. He got up there to the altar, and the pastor or the minister or somebody laid hands on him, and he stood there. While they praying for him, he just stood there. Then they can't lay hands on me, and I'm all over the floor squirming and stuff, and it's just like, what's that about? That's not even fair, because I know he's crazy. He hit me, or he's done this. He does a lot of crazy stuff. So why didn't he manifest? He didn't manifest because God doesn't operate against your will. He didn't manifest because God's not going to cast something out of you that you want to keep. God does not go against your will. That's why it's called witchcraft, when we try to go against the will of another human being. Even bringing somebody to the altar, dragging somebody to the altar who doesn't want to come, that can be construed as witchcraft, because you're pulling somebody, you're trying to force them to get delivered when they really don't want to get deliverance. And the thing about it is, if you force a person into deliverance, then they're going to only come back out the sanctuary and go pick the demons back up, even if they go through any measure of deliverance. Let's just say they come into the sanctuary and they start feeling some type of way. They're like, yeah, this is right. I see God moving, and their heart starts to turn, and they start feeling something or what have you. But it's not necessarily something they want or understand. Then typically what will happen is they'll go to the altar and you'll see them manifest. They'll get a little measure of deliverance, but they'll go back out there, pick that spirit back up. And the Bible says that if it comes back, it's going to take 7 spirits more wicked than itself. And the last state of that man is going to be worse than the first. And so a lot of women and a lot of men have found this out the hard way. When you're dealing with the narcissistic personality, when you're dealing with the Jezebel spirit, that person oftentimes is in love with that spirit. It is hard. I'm going to say it's not impossible, but it's oftentimes really hard to get a person to divorce the Jezebel spirit. Because here's the thing I come to understand. When it comes to demonic spirits, the same way that you break up with a man, the same way that you break up with a woman, you have to break up with a spirit. That means that you have to put that person out. You have to change your location. You don't stay in the same place that you were in. You got to take away their key. You got to take away their access to you. Oftentimes you have to change your phone number, and you have to stop calling them. You got to stop revisiting, like going through their Facebook page, or you got to throw away all the notes that they gave you. You got to throw away all the gifts that they gave you. You got to completely separate yourself. You got to purge your house and clean your house of that person. And it's the same thing again when it comes to a spirit. If you want to get rid of a spirit, you can't keep its ways and get rid of the demon. A lot of people don't understand that. So a lot of times when people have the Jezebel spirit, even when they get free, a lot of times they go back and pick it back up. And the reason they pick it back up is because it's hard for them to conceptualize leading or living a normal life without using all the different wows and maneuvers that they once used, because those maneuvers and wows have proved to be somewhat beneficial to them, at least in their own world. They have proved to be somewhat beneficial to them, especially when you take a person who's gone through deliverance from the Jezebel spirit and you put them in a hard situation. Whenever they find themselves in a hard situation, all too often they feel as if especially if the situation continues to intensify, they feel as if something's going on. God's going to come in, he's going to intervene, because, and they tend to be transactional. God's going to intervene, God's going to come along, and he's not going to let this keep happening. Well, a lot of times what happens is the situation continues to escalate, and what it is, God will allow a situation to escalate to purge you out. So to take out what's on the inside of you, to get rid of it, to get you to finally deny yourself, to get you to finally deny the manipulation that you're accustomed to, God will allow you to go through a hard situation. But a lot of times when people have called upon God and God doesn't seem to be moving, and it just seems like they're backed into a corner, then a lot of times they'll reconcile with Jezebel. They'll allow that spirit to come back so that they can utilize it. They can utilize what they feel like are that demon's strengths. So before we move on, looks like we don't have a whole lot of people watching. And like I said, I suspect that is because I went live, so a lot of people are still looking for the other video or what have you. So do me a favor, guys, make sure that you're sharing this on your timeline. Let's get more people up in here. I wish there was a way that I can get a link and email people, but I don't see that, because I know a lot of people are looking for it. Let's see, top chat, stream options. Okay. Yeah. So we'll just keep moving on, and people will come in as they may. So again, a lot of times people who have gotten delivered from that particular spirit, one of the reasons it's hard for people to stay free when you're dealing with the Jezebel spirit is because playing around with that spirit has proved to be somewhat beneficial at some point in their lives. And so they find that a lot of times people have a Rachel complex. Like, they don't want the demon, but they want what the demon has to offer. They want the different tools, the different manipulations, or what have you. So a lot of times they'll go back and start playing with those wows. They'll start playing with the manipulation. They'll start playing with certain things, and they'll keep doing that. Next thing you know, they're bound by the Jezebel spirit again. But when it came back, it brought 7 spirits more wicked than itself. And so they end up even more bound. And then after a while, you see them and they're no longer going for deliverance. After a while, you know they're bound. You can see that they're bound, but they're no longer going for deliverance. They're no longer going for anything. As a matter of fact, they start just trying to go hard for something else. You know, I'm just going to come out here and I'm just going to be doing this. I'm going to go and start this business. I'm going to go and do this. And it's like, okay, but you're going hard for your business, but why don't you go like that for God? And that's because that spirit that's on the inside of them, or that network of spirits that's on the inside of them, will oftentimes cause them to become angry with the very ministers that cast the demon out, will cause them to become angry with the very church that they got deliverance from. One of the things that you guys have heard me teach you is if you go and you get any measure of deliverance, and I said this to my students when I did deliverance with the students when my mentees, when I first launched the mentorship program, we did a deliverance over the phone. And I said, hey, listen, now I want y'all to know before I take you through deliverance, if you let that spirit come back, it's going to make you mad at me, because that demon is mad it got cast out. So it has to separate you from me, because the thing about it is, it does not want that it is discovered again, and then it ends up having to get cast out. And sure enough, after the deliverance, we had a lot of people who got out of the program. Some people stayed in for like a month and two, what have you. Next thing you know, it was some type of offense. Something will happen, and this is what the enemy has a tendency to do. So again, when we're dealing with the term narcissism, it is the same term for the Jezebel spirit. It is the secular term for really the Jezebel spirit. So I want to give you guys a definition of the word narcissism. The first one is coming from Google, and it reads: excessive interest in or admiration of oneself. Excessive interest in or admiration of oneself and one's physical appearance. Now that comes from Google. Now I don't know about you, back when I was in the world, and even since I've been a Christian, I've had friends who have had that spirit. And when I was in the world, I didn't know what to call it, but I just tried to manage it. Like, you knew that the person was bound, or you knew that the person had some type of issue. But when I was in the world, I would oftentimes try to manage that spirit. I would try to handle it. So for example, if I had a friend who behaved a certain way, I didn't care if she pointed it at other people, but when it started pointing at me, oftentimes I would be really confrontational and say, hey, listen, that ain't cool. Don't be trying this stuff, or what have you. So I just remember having a friend back when I was in the world, and she was narcissistic, and we didn't have that term back then, and I had never heard of the term Jezebel. But one of the things was that she would oftentimes say, I'm ugly. She would call herself ugly, and this girl was 10 shades of beautiful. She was absolutely gorgeous, and she knew that. It wasn't that she believed that she was ugly, but she just wanted that affirmation. She wanted somebody to come along. So she was used to saying that in front of people, and people would say, girl, what is wrong with you? You are absolutely gorgeous, or what have you. But she would oftentimes call herself ugly. This is a trait of narcissism, or the Jezebel spirit. So again, here's that definition: excessive interest in or admiration of oneself. So they tend to admire themselves and their own physical appearance. When you're dealing with a beautiful Jezebel, a lot of times they find traits about themselves that they feel make them superior to other people. And so like I said, I've had friends like that when I was in the world. I've been around people like that, and I've got a chance to see that when you're dealing with people like that, oftentimes they will say, let's just say, for example, a woman has gray eyes. She's an African American woman. She's beautiful. She has gray eyes. So oftentimes she will reference her eyes. She'll be like, somebody asked me if I'm, if I'm mixed, with Caucasian or what have you. And it's like, they always talking about my eyes, girl. They're always talking about my eyes, because in that, what she's saying, this is the one thing that I feel like gives me, makes me superior to every other African American, and she likes to find shallow people. She likes to be around people who are shallow like herself, people who may be caught up in her eyes, people who may be sitting up and saying, oh, she got some beautiful eyes or what have you, because it allows her to take whatever position she wants to take in that person's life. She likes to try to bewitch people with that very trait. So a lot of times when you're coming across people who are narcissistic, they will find that one thing about themselves. I don't care if it's a mole just above the lip. They will find that they'll highlight that mole, and they'll be like, because girl, I got a mole above my lip, right? And so yeah, she gonna get mad at me because her mole is fake and my mole is real. So it's like, why get mad at me about that? Why get mad at me about that? But it's just narcissism. It's the Jezebel spirit. I want to give you guys another definition of narcissism. This time we're gonna take this from Encyclopedia Britannica as narcissism. Pathological self-absorption. First identified as a mental disorder by the British essayist and physician Havelock Ellis in 1898. Narcissism is characterized by an inflated self-image and addiction to fantasy. I always tell you, y'all stay away from fantasy. By an unusual coolness and composure shaken only when the narcissistic confidence is threatened, and by the tendency to take others for granted or exploit them. The disorder is named for the mythological figure Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. According to Sigmund Freud, narcissism is a normal stage in child development, but it is considered a disorder when it occurs after puberty. Again, that's Encyclopedia Britannica. I'm going to read that again for you guys. Pathological self-absorption, first identified as a mental disorder by the British essayist and physician Havelock Ellis in 1898. Narcissism is characterized by an inflated self-image and addiction to fantasy, by an unusual coolness and composure shaken only when the narcissistic confidence is threatened, and by the tendency to take others for granted or to exploit them. This disorder is named for the mythological creature Narcissus, who fell in love with his own reflection. According to Sigmund Freud, narcissism is a normal stage in child development. Children tend to be narcissistic or self-absorbed because of immaturity, but it is considered a disorder when it occurs after puberty. That's when it starts to be, that's when a doctor can say, okay, this child is dealing with narcissistic personality disorder. Is because they come off as developmentally delayed. They're still sitting back, and there's a certain point in childhood when children start to kind of grow up, and they're not so dominant when it comes to their toys or what have you. They're not so self-absorbed, but once they get after puberty and they're still exhibiting those behaviors, then it is considered a disorder. Now, it comes from the mythological creature figure Narcissus, and if you don't know about that, that's Greek mythology. And so in Greek mythology, Narcissus was the son, I think, of what was supposed to be another god or two gods or what have you. And so some other deity, and this demonic is not true, so I don't want you guys taking this as a fact, but some other deity came and said that Narcissus would live long as he didn't see himself. However, he rejected another deity. I think they were trying to hook him up or something like that, but he rejected another, and the female versions of those deities were called nymphs. That's a whole other message right there, but they were called nymphs. They were beautiful, but they were called nymphs. So he rejected her, and then as a result, he was cursed, and he ended up seeing his reflection in water. He died at the water because he couldn't pull himself away. He just kept staring at his reflection in the water. And so he was just really, really self-absorbed. Again, That is not a true story. It is Greek mythology, but that's just the origin of that. So in short, again, narcissism is the Jezebel spirit. I want to give you guys characteristics of the narcissistic personality, or better yet, characteristics of the Jezebel spirit. And again, I'm not going to be really exhaustive on today. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to give you guys some characteristics, some of the things to look out for on today, and then next week we'll come back and we'll visit this topic all over again. So characteristics of the Jezebel spirit. I'm going to try to, explain a few of them, or explain as many as I can. Number one, people with the Jezebel spirit tend to be very vain. They tend to be very vain. They're caught up. And oftentimes, if you come across a woman, for example, who has a Jezebel spirit, if she's beautiful, then she will highlight her beauty. As a matter of fact, everywhere she goes, she will highlight her beauty. She will always try to show off her beauty. If she's not pretty, she will try to find a trait about her that she feels gives her a place or the right to take a dominant position. So, for example, she may have, again, natural gray eyes. So she'll get around people who have dark eyes, maybe what have you there, so she'll stand out and she'll say, people don't like me because I have gray eyes, and it's like I have no control over that, or what have you. So she finds that one thing about herself that she believes that helps her to stand out. If you're dealing with a male, for example, a lot of times he may go outside and, let's just say, poor neighborhood, he'll go out and buy himself a car, an expensive car or a cheap car, and he'll put a lot of rims and stuff in. He'll put a lot of money into that car, and so he'll utilize that to kind of make himself stand out from everybody else. But they tend to be very vain, and some of the things I'm going to give you about the Jezebel spirit are really closely related to the point where they can almost be like the same pointer. Number two, the grandiose sense of self-importance. Grandiose sense of self-importance. So people with the Jezebel spirit believe that they should be at the top. They believe that they're called to greatness, that God has called them to rise above the masses and what have you. And this often, I don't even think I have this in my notes, but this often leads to them feeling slighted. Like when they see somebody else take a position they believe is supposed to be for them, this is what leads them to feel slighted. They have this grandiose sense of self-importance, even though they're not necessarily putting in the work. They just feel like I'm entitled to it. So let's just go back to the beautiful woman example. And so we all know all women are beautiful, but there are sometimes in some societies, certain cultures, certain neighborhoods, certain regions, there's a certain feature that's considered beautiful. So if she is considered a standout beauty in her community, or not even necessarily a standout, she could be a standout in her own head. A lot of times what happens is she feels like, I'm supposed to get the best looking man. I'm supposed to have this. I'm supposed to have that. She starts to really feel like that. And a lot of times what happens is, if, let's just say she gets into a relationship or what have you, so she's really narcissistic, really self-absorbed. Some man comes along, gets into a relationship with her, messes around with her, have a child with her, does whatever. Then he tosses her and he gets in a relationship with somebody else. She tends to compare herself, and she'll say, she doesn't even look as pretty as me. Like, I don't even get it. She doesn't look anywhere near. And so you'll find that when you're dealing with people who have a Jezebel spirit, they tend to have very shallow conversations. Their conversations are oftentimes about their flesh. And this is one of the reasons I find that they tend to deal with a lot of depression. They tend to deal with a lot of depression because as life hits them, especially as they start to age, as life hits, they start realizing that things don't necessarily go the way they thought they were going to go. So while she was sitting, for example, she was in the hood and she was just beautiful. She felt like, because she was beautiful, she felt like something was going to happen, like some man was going to come, and so she get with this particular guy. She may dump him, or she'll reject this guy who genuinely likes her. She'll reject them because she believes that somebody's going to come along and who's going to give her the lifestyle that she wants, and so she feels entitled to that lifestyle. She's very self-absorbed, and so she feels entitled, and that's the very thing that causes men to toss her away from them, is because she's so self-absorbed, which is number three, but go back to number 2, a grandiose sense of self-importance. So she just feels like I'm entitled to go to the top. So for her, she will sit around in the hood and have babies and do all kinds of stuff, but she feels like I'm entitled to the top. I'm entitled to this. I'm entitled to that. This is going to happen for me because I have gray eyes. This is going to happen to me because I got long legs. This is going to happen for me because I got this going for me, or I got that going for me. And she has this grandiose sense of self-importance. And what ends up happening is she doesn't get the very thing that she was waiting for, so she ends up starting to get bitter. And so from there, she starts blaming other people. It's her fault. Let's just say she's working on a job. I didn't get the raise because she's sleeping with the boss. Who told you she was sleeping with the boss? So for her, the reason that she started, and she may genuinely believe that in her heart, the reason she thinks that way is she thinks that there's no way he would promote her over me because I look 1,000 times better than her. I look 1,000 times, and I know that God has called me, because they often tend to be religious as well. I know that God has called me to the top, and God has called me to do this, and God has called me to do that. And so in her mind, it's got to be something that the other female did extra that has caused her to be rejected from the position or for the position that she believes herself to be entitled to. It's got to be something that she, so a lot of times when you're dealing with people who have that personality, they feel that way. Another example that I'm thinking about is this one particular girl, and I think I've shared this story with you guys before. When I worked in secular America, or I always say the traditional workplace. I have a tendency to say secular America, and I've had a couple of friends be like, why do you say that? And I'm like, well, traditional workplace or what have you. But when I worked in the traditional workplace, let me see, guys, I'm emailing people. But when I worked in a traditional workplace, and I've shared this story before, I had all these friends, and my friends were all beautiful in the natural sense of the word. We were all in the world, but they were all beautiful. And the reason for that was I started hanging around one of them, and so I kind of inherited her friends. And so a lot of times when you come across people like that, and this is where we talk about vanity, sometimes they will not hang around anybody they feel is beneath them unless they feel like that person has something to bring to the table. So you'll have a bunch of women who are considered beautiful, and they only want to hang around beautiful women. And so they feel, you see them and they're in a clique and they're kind of stuck up and what have you. And that's because they have this thing, they're vain, and they just want to feel really important. And so long story short, I think I was the darkest one in the crew. I was the darkest one in the crew. And for them, for whatever reason, some people feel like because my color is this color, I'm better than you. I have never in my life been the type of person who compares myself to my friends. And I have never, I don't look at people as her being prettier than me. I just don't see people like that. I see people differently. I see people as, she's real pretty, and that's it. And I see me as, God gave me my face. I thank God for my face. I'm not hard to look at. And I look at it this way. A man who's for me will come for me. Who's for her will come for her. And because of that attitude, because I had that level of confidence, I've never had a situation where they got more attention than me. It never happened. So this one particular story, we were all working in a traditional workplace, working in retail, and we were coming to work in the morning. I remember we were all coming in the building. It was me and I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 other girls, and I don't know how we got there at the same time, but we were coming in, and this one guy that used to hang around us, we were all coming in together, and there were some men on top of the building. They were working on the building. They had just built that particular store, what have you, so they were on top of the building, and they started yelling down. They said, hey, and they started yelling. They said, girl in the purple shirt, girl in the purple shirt. So they started yelling at me. And I laughed and I ignored them or what have you. But I just remember that the women around me, it's like the energy got zapped out of them or what have you. One of them was okay, but it's like the other ones, like the energy got zapped out. And they were like, hey, and they started talking to the guy because that was walking with us, because he worked in security, so they knew that they had met him before or what have you. So he came back in the store after we had clocked in, and he came up to us, all of us girls who were still standing around together, and he came up, he said, And this is what he said, God darn it, Tiffany, I don't know what you done did to them guys out there. You know, he was using other language, but he was like, I don't know what you done did, but they all out there talking about some hook me up, and you know, they out there and they were just talking. So I laughed it off and what have you. And I just remember one of the girls sitting there, and she just had this, it's like somebody took the life out of her. And she sat there and she said, and I don't think she attempted to say that out loud. I think it just kind of came out. And she said, the only reason they keep coming after her is because of her big breast. And I was like, wait, what? She was like, she said the only reason they shouting after her is because of her big breast. And I was confused by that. I was like, are you serious? So of course, I've always been the confrontational type. Sometimes I say I'm not confrontational, but I realize when I look back over my past that I have been confrontational, meaning I will, say something in the moment or what have you. So I remember telling her, I was like, that's really shallow. First and foremost, and I started telling her, and I don't remember verbatim what I said to her, but I remember in short, I told her, I said, everybody has something. I said, you got a big butt. So everybody has something, so it's not necessarily that it's the breast. And if that is the case, then that's their thing or what have you. But when she said that, she was really mad when she said it. She was really mad when she said it. So that's that entitlement, this grandiose sense of self-importance, like I'm better. And so people who have the Jezebel spirit, they tend to put themselves in cliques around people who they feel like they have an advantage over. However, they do want the people to be beautiful or have something going for them. But a lot of times their friends will find themselves like, okay, what was that about? They will find themselves asking, like, why'd you act like that? Like when a dude came around, especially when you're dealing with women, young women, a lot of times they can see each other's Jezebel spirits when men come around. Because when a man comes around, that's when a woman starts to reveal herself. So they tend to be very self-absorbed. That was grandiose sense of self-importance, which is number 2. Number 3, they're self-absorbed. They're always talking about themselves. It's always about, this happened to me. This person said this to me. This is how I feel. As a matter of fact, if you get in a conversation with somebody who has this disorder or this spirit, they can't seem to stop talking about themselves. So I don't care if you say, my mama died. They're going to say, I'm sorry to hear that. Girl, yeah, I know. So I had a really hard week myself. It's like, and so they start talking about getting a paper cut. No, it's like, no, that doesn't compare. I'm sitting here saying, because they don't like the spotlight coming off of them. They don't like, okay, it seems like everybody's going to be looking at you or giving you attention this week. They don't like that. So they always try to bring the spotlight back to themselves. They're always trying to bring the attention back to themselves. So they'll find some way to cast themselves as a victim. They'll find some way to say, it was a really hard week for me too. And I'm sorry. Let me say, are you okay? You good? As soon as you say, yeah, I'm getting through, they say, okay, yeah, girl. So I was talking to this guy, and it's like he's acting stupid, and it's like, did you hear me? You sitting there like, you just not hear me? I said I had a whole mama that passed away, but the conversation starts to come right back on them. They're very, very self-absorbed. Some years ago, I did an article when I was still a babe in Christ, and I got to go back and read that article. But in an article, I talked about how people who are very self-centered tend to deal with mental illness. And I found that when you're dealing with the Jezebel spirit, they are always flirting with mental illness. There's always something going on inside of their head because they have no self-control. The Bible says a city without walls, or a person who has no self-control is like a city without walls. They have no guard up. The Bible says to guard your heart, for out of it pours the issues of life. They really have no guard up. So for that very reason, they tend to flirt with insanity. They tend to flirt with craziness. And that's why I've heard other people say, why do so many beautiful women, why are they crazy? It's because a lot of times they don't necessarily have a wall up. And so they are so used to they keep the walls down so they can receive the compliments. They keep the walls down so people can constantly build up their self-worth, build up their self-esteem, but they tend to be very, very, very self-absorbed. And they will come off, in the beginning as being concerned about you. They'll come off a certain way, but in the end, you'll find out like all of our conversations are about her. All of our conversations are about him. let me see, I got another point I want to put in here. But all of my conversations tend to be about this person. And I remember having to say that to a friend of mine, old friend of mine, one time. It was time for confrontation. I was like, sis, every time we talk on the phone, I said, for the last few years I've known you, 95 to 98% of our conversations are about you. Like, that's all we talk about is about you, how your day was, this, that. And so they have a tendency, when you're dealing with the Jezebel spirit or narcissistic personality, they have a tendency to always bring the conversation and the attention back to themselves. And then at the same time, if you try to change the conversation, they're very crafty at bringing the conversation back to themselves. So for example, if you're talking to them, let's say they're on the phone, they're telling you about their day. Somebody cut them off in traffic, their boss went off on them, one of their coworkers rolled their eyes, and they just had a really, really crazy day. And so they're telling you about that. And then so you have a chance now in any conversation, like a friendship, you're going to have, both of y'all are going to communicate, but they won't allow there to be any balanced communication, because in their mind, they're their own guys. They're very self-absorbed. So what they'll tend to do is they'll kind of cut in. So if you cut in and you say, yeah, girl, that's like me, and you start talking about something that happened to you, they'll just be like, okay, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Hold on for a minute. If you keep talking, they'll say, hold on. So when you're on hold, you're just like, okay, here we go. When they come back to the phone, all right, girl, either they're going to say, I'll call you back, or they'll say, hold on for a minute. But when they come back to the phone, either they're going to say, I'll call you back, or when they come back to the phone, they'll say, all right, I'm back. Girl, these people are so crazy around here. So they're going to try to take control of the conversation again, or they'll say, like I was saying. And so that's their attempt to bring the conversation, bring the spotlight back to them. And so typically when I deal with people like that, I'll say, no, you weren't talking, I was talking. So let me go ahead and tell you this, or what have you. And they'll get off the phone because they don't know how to have conversations about other people. They're very self-absorbed. Number 4, they are self-entitled. They are self-entitled. They feel like everything belongs to them. As a matter of fact, they have this belief that, we talked about the beautiful woman on the job or what have you, and even though she may not qualify like the other secretary, let's just say it's a secretary position that comes open or what have you, she may not qualify for the position. There's somebody who is more qualified for the position, but she feels entitled to the position because she's beautiful, or she feels entitled to the position because she feels like I flattered the boss, I've done this, I've done that. So she feels entitled to the position, and a lot of times they'll quit when they don't get what they feel they are entitled to. And so they have a tendency, and I think that's one of my notes, they have a tendency to be really unreasonable. They feel like if they're living in a house and they don't pay the rent, that they feel like you're supposed to let them stay there. If I paid my rent consistently in the past, you're supposed to let me stay here. And so anybody who comes and says, hey, let's just say they have an apartment manager, says, hey, listen, you didn't pay the rent, you're gonna have to either pay by this date or get out the house. They start feeling slighted, they feel upset. And so a lot of times, they're just like, oh, she's a Jezebel, she's this and she's that. I always knew she had it out for me. She think I want her man. She jealous of me or something like that. Rather than them just looking at it for what it really is. Sis, you didn't pay the rent. They don't look at it that way. They look at it like people are out to get them. They're like, see, that's why, that's one of the hard parts about having great eyes. It's like, sometimes I feel like when I go into a place, I got to close my eyes because I don't want nobody to see my eyes. Because folks be, it's just like, and a lot of times they'll say things like, because, black women, and I'm talking about these are black women, or what have you. But the reality is, that's just their self-entitlement. They feel entitled to other people's men. That when you're dealing with a Jezebelic personality, the woman can see somebody who has a man and she'll feel entitled to that man. She'll feel like, well, he should be with me because I feel like I look better than you. I feel like I have more to offer him than you have to offer him. So a lot of times you'll find that they play the other woman or what have you, but they feel entitled. Number 5, they tend to be prideful. When you're dealing with the narcissistic personality or the Jezebel spirit, they will often avoid people who will tell them the truth. Anybody who can help them, they will avoid them. They won't bring them close. If they have to deal with you let's just say in the workplace, they will kind of keep you off to a distance, but they won't necessarily deal with you on a personal level. But if you ever try to tell them the truth, they'll say, I know all that, or that's what somebody else already said to me, or what have you. They will never give you credit for what you say. They always got to give the credit to somebody else. So if you say, hey sis, you really need to stop, driving like that, because I noticed when, I was in the car with you the other day, you were driving. Yeah, girl, please. But anyhow, I was talking to a lady named Janice the other day, and Janice told me that I needed to stop driving so crazy. So I decided to take her advice. Meaning they don't want to give you the credit. They always want to point the credit to somebody else, because they want you to believe that they are better than you and you're not qualified to advise them. They want you to believe that either you're equal to me or I'm better than you, but you are not necessarily qualified to advise me. So they always say, I know that, or what have you. They're very, very prideful. You can never get information into them. The only time they really listen to people is if the person has a place, a position that they want, somebody in hierarchy who's higher than them, and they're somebody if they're kissing that person's butt, they'll pretend to take the advice, or they'll take the advice not because they believe the advice to be true, but they'll take the advice because they feel like, by doing this, it helps me to elevate up the ladder, or what have you. But they're very, very, very prideful. Number 6, they have a Machiavellian complex. That means they're sneaky, they're cunning, they're calculating, and they're immoral. They have a Machiavellian complex. So they tend to be very, very intelligent. They know how to play people. As a matter of fact, I found that a lot of people that I've known who have the Jezebel spirit oftentimes will say, I've been thinking about going to school for psychology, or what have you. And that's not to say that everybody who's interested in psychology has the Jezebel spirit. It is to say people who have the Jezebel spirit tend to be, especially the smarter ones, they tend to be interested in psychology because they've played with people's heads for so long that they actually feel like they are master manipulators. They feel like they're really good at it. So they tend to be drawn to the field of psychology, but not because they want to help people, but because they want to exploit people, because they want to know, how does the mind work, and, what can I do? How can I get this, or what have you? So they have a Machiavellian complex. They're very sneaky. They're cunning. They're calculating. I'm pretty sure I have this in the pointers, but they'll do stuff like, let's just say you have 3 females. What have you. And I'm trying to think of an example, stuff that I've experienced. You have the female who has a Jezebel spirit, and let's just say it's a workplace, what have you. But the one who has a Jezebel spirit, she's standing there, she's talking to somebody, and somebody else comes, another female comes and walks up or says anything, she will completely ignore that person. And so she'll do certain things. This is her way of being kind. And what she's trying to do is teach this person, this is how we treat her. This is what she's doing. This is how we treat her. We treat her and typically that means she's threatened by that female. So this is how we treat her. We don't. And so a lot of times when you come across people like that, they'll treat you a certain way around certain people, but then they'll catch you alone, and then they'll try to be really nice. They'll come up to you and be like, what's up, sis? How you doing, girl? They'll say little nice things to you. Within a day's span, you will see a manifestation of several personalities. So earlier it's like, hey, what's up, sis? In the next hour or so, you're like, did I do something to her? Because she's acting really, really weird. We call that in Mississippi acting funny. She's acting really, really weird. She's not, she's just acting. And so a lot of times what they do is they don't like, and this is another pointer, but they don't like their friends to be connected for the most part, if they have any control over it. And so they try to show people how to treat you, and then they'll eventually try to show you how to treat people. So they'll try to talk about the other person or what have you. So they're very sneaky, they're very cunning, very calculating, very immoral. They feel like they are smarter than the average bear or what have you. So they're very strategic in the things that they do. Number 7, they lie, manipulate, and seduce. They lie, manipulate, and seduce. So a good example is an old friend of mine that I had back when I was in the world. One of the things that she used to do, we worked together, and one of the things that she used to do was, I'm introverted, meaning I don't tend to get around a whole lot of people or what have you. So I'm just, any given place I go into, I'll probably have a few people that I deal with, but I don't really deal with everybody or what have you. So that's just typical for an introvert. So this particular friend was extroverted, which most Jezebels, well, not most of them, some Jezebels are extroverted, and so she was more extroverted. And what she would do was she would make all these different friends. She would have all these different friends, but she kept them separate from me. And I could never understand why those friends didn't like me. So she would come back and tell me that they didn't like me. Such and such said this about you. And like I told her, and one day I had to ask her, I was like, why is it that none of your friends like me? Why is it this? And so after a while, I started to see, because I was young or what have you, but I started to understand what she was doing, what she was talking about me to them, and she was talking about them to me. So one of the things that she used to do was whenever I would get tired of it, I used to walk up to her and I used to say, hey, listen, I'm like, stay out of my face. I don't want nothing to do with you. You see me, pretend I'm not here. I'll pretend you're not there. Just leave me alone. I'll walk off. And I remember I could hear her yelling behind me, what I do now? What I do now? But she would go back and tell her friends, like, sometimes I think the girl's crazy or something, because, she does this. And so what she would do, she would manipulate their perception of me as a person and what have you. And so she would get them to thinking that because I don't deal with them, that, okay, Tiffany's jealous of me having other friends. And it's like, I was like, no, I'm just saying you can't play games. Like, you can't come in today and you speak to me at 7, but at 9 you go to acting funny, because somebody else came around. Now you talking to her and now you acting funny, but then come 10 o'clock when she ain't around, you back in my face again. And I was never the person to put up with that. So I would say, hey, take that and just stay out of my face with that. I don't play them type of games. And so there was a time when I was young, I actually did start questioning whether, maybe am I being unrealistic or unreasonable? Like, is something wrong with me? Because that's what they tend to do. They make you feel like there's something wrong with you. And so we end up having this one coworker who was like a big sister to the both of us, and she started calling her out on it. She was like, no, she's right. You keep doing this and you keep doing that. And it helped me to understand, thank God, because I was starting to think like, she has all the friends and she's over talking to them, and it makes me feel like there's something wrong with me because I'm noticing certain things that she does that they don't necessarily see, and because I'm calling it out or what have you. So they tend to lie, manipulate, and seduce. So they would seduce all of their friends, manipulate them into thinking a certain way. They would try to strategically make sure that you never become friends or what have you, so that you would never figure out their different things, because they always have an end goal in everything. They always have something that they're trying to do. So they manipulate. They're always trying to manipulate the situation. They're always trying to manipulate a person. They're always trying to seduce people. Seduction is not always sexual. Sometimes they try to seduce people with their eyes. Sometimes they try to seduce people with their words. I found that when it comes to demonic spirits, we'll say, and that, for example, they have a power in their lips or power in their eyes. God said in the, I think in the book of Proverbs, don't let her, what is it? Something with her eyelids. Don't let her capture you with her eyelids. I think it was. Don't let her capture you with her eyelids. The Bible talks a lot about the eyes of the immoral woman and the tongue of the immoral woman. Some of the things that she says is sweet like honey, or what have you. No man that turns into her should come out, or what have you. They tend to seduce, and so they're very good at seducing people. They can walk up to you and they can cast themselves as a victim. As a matter of fact, when they start talking to you, you really feel like this is a really good girl. This is a really nice, sweet girl. But at the end of the day, when you get to know her character, you're just like, no, she's jacked up. She's got issues, but she has a tendency to seducing other people to believe in the same thing about her. And so you can't tell people that, hey, this girl got issues until they've gotten to know her for a while. And then once they get to know her, they realize, hey, she got issues. Number 8, Jezebels tend to befriend people in power. They tend to befriend people in power, or people who are rising to power. And they will befriend people who are beautiful or have anything that they feel they're entitled to. Most of their friendships are centered around jealousy. Most of their friendships are centered around, you are the supervisor and you're coming up, so yeah, I want to hang with you. Now, when you were working alongside her, she was competing with you. But as soon as you rise to power, all of a sudden, they want to be your friend. All of a sudden, they try to come around you because they don't like to be around commoners. They don't like to be around people. The only time, like with commoners, they like to use people for their own good. You worship me, give me compliments or what have you, but they like to use people, they like to get around people in power. So in any given organization, you will find them running up to every person that has any branch or any measure of power. They will always run up to them. These are the co-workers, for example, who always tell on folks, who are always kissing up behind the boss. They always like to get around people in power, or they'll get around beautiful people. So you have a tendency, like you have a Jezebel who happens to be beautiful. She likes to surround herself with beautiful women because beauty equals power to her, because she feels like, men are going to see our clique and be like, man. And so she feels like that's going to give her some type of leverage, because if I'm hanging around a bunch of beautiful women, all of us are beautiful or what have you, my insecurities are not out for everybody to see, and so the man's going to feel privileged to be with me or what have you. So they like to hang around people who are beautiful, people who are in power, or people who have something that they feel entitled to. If you're in a relationship, and you don't necessarily have to be beautiful or powerful, but if you're in a relationship, let's say you're married and your husband treats you like a queen, then the thing is, you will draw Jezebel in because she feels entitled to a man like that. She feels like she's supposed to have a man like that. So she wants to get close to find out your secrets and what have you. So they like to get around people that they feel are in any measure of power, people who are rising to power. They like to catch you on your way up, and they like to befriend people who are beautiful, or people they feel who have anything that they feel entitled to. Number 9, they tend to be unforgiving and resentful. They don't like to let things go very easily. You come up to somebody who has a Jezebel spirit, and if you offend them, you tell them no, you do anything, for the most part, they'll try to forgive you, or they'll pretend to forgive you. But they tend to hold on to different things. They tend to hold on to all the bad things. As a matter of fact, most Jezebels have been harmed or hurt, or a lot of Jezebels have been hurt by their parents. And so they're yet still waiting on their parents to receive the punishment for the things that they've done to them. So they tend to be very unforgiving and resentful. Men who are married to women who have the Jezebel spirit find themselves under punishment a lot. They're always in what we call the proverbial doghouse. They're always on punishment for different things that they've done or different things that they've said. The man comes home from work and he doesn't acknowledge her the way she feels like she's supposed to be acknowledged or what have you. Then he ends up going on punishment for like a week, and he doesn't even realize what he's done wrong. So he comes in and he's buying flowers and he's doing everything, because one of the things that Jezebels do is they specialize in changing the temperature of your home. I often talk about this temperature. For example, my house has a certain temperature, and I'm not talking about what's on the the air conditioner, what have you. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about what's on the thermometer. I'm talking about the temperature of peace, the temperature that I've set my house to. My house is set to peace. And so people who have the Jezebel spirit, they don't know how to go into an atmosphere and submit to the authority of that atmosphere. They have to always come in and set it to their temperature. So if you make somebody in your home, if you're living with somebody who has a Jezebel spirit, and you make them angry, they will change the temperature in the home. They will change it, because here's the thing. We are all like plants. We thrive at a certain temperature. We do very well at a certain temperature, but there are certain temperatures that cause us to dwindle away. And so a lot of times, if you're living in a house with a personality like this, they'll punish you. Now, the punishment doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be violent. Sometimes it's just not speaking to you, making your home very uncomfortable, making it very uncomfortable. So when you pull up in front of your house, you just sitting in your car in front of the house, staring at it. You almost want to get a cigarette and just before you go into the house. But they tend to be very unforgiving and resentful. Matter of fact, a lot of times they will stay mad at you until they feel like you've gotten what you deserved, or you have proved yourself to be sorry. Number 10, they hate order. Jezebels hate order. If you want to keep a Jezebel away from you, always have a house and have a lifestyle of order, and maintain it, enforce it, and just be unrelenting when it comes to order. They hate order. They don't like hierarchy. They don't like this thing about oh, pastor being the, the greatest one on the chain. He a human just like I am. They don't like order. As a matter of fact, whenever a Jezebel goes into a church, a lot of times she doesn't want to refer to the pastor as pastor. She will often try to refer to him by his first name. If she refers to him as pastor, she will try to do so in a condescending way. She's more likely to call him bro, or something like that. She's always trying to bring him down to her level and bring herself over him, or she's always trying to get him to feel, or get her to feel, if the pastor happens to be a woman, she's always trying to get the pastor to feel like I'm your sister in Christ and that we're equal. She's always trying. She does not like this whole thing. And when I say she, understand that men can have the Jezebel spirit as well, but Jezebels don't like hierarchy. They don't like being they don't like this whole concept of you outranking me in the spirit. They're like, at the end of the day, we both bleed blood. At the end of the day, we this. At the end of the day, we that, or what have you. But they don't like order, and that's the reason why when they get married, anytime a man marries a Jezebel spirit, one of the things that, if he marries a woman who has a Jezebel spirit, one of the things that happens is she will constantly go against something he says, because it becomes a tug of war when it comes to power. Or if the man has a Jezebel spirit, he marries his wife, instead of him heading the home, he will actually abuse his authority, meaning it gets to the point where he starts to override her will, and whenever she doesn't do what he wants her to do, again, they're unforgiving and distrusting. What he'll do is he'll punish her. So I've given this example on another video. If she goes to church, he doesn't want to go to that church. He doesn't want to go to church at all, but he especially doesn't want to go to that church. He'll punish her. So when she comes home, it can be a passive punishment. When she comes home, he's up in there and he's watching the game and he's not really talking to her. Or a lot of times when she comes home, he's not home and he's not answering his phone. So that's the punishment that she gets. And so it teaches her that if I go to church, I'm not going to have a good day when I come home from church or what have you. So it doesn't have to be him saying anything to her. As a matter of fact, most or many Jezebels are passive or passive aggressive. They're not necessarily going to come to the person and say, you did this and I got offended with that. They're not going to do that. They just punish you and wait for you to figure out what you did wrong. They wait for you to figure out. They feel like it's right there in your face. You should see it right then. Every time you do this, I have a tendency to do that. They expect you to figure out what you did wrong. And once you figure it out, they expect you to correct that particular behavior. So again, they are disorderly. They hate order. Any place they go, they're always going across the line. They're always crossing boundaries. As a matter of fact, when it comes to my business, when it comes to Anointed Fire, one of the ways that I can tell when I'm dealing with a client who has the Jezebel spirit is they have a tendency to try to go outside of my rules. And it becomes, for example, I'll have people who they're supposed to log into my site, like they have a back end, so they can log into the back end to look at their logo to approve the sample. So instead of them following the instructions on the page, and it says if you approve this sample, a big red button that says approve sample, they won't do that. Instead, they'll email me or they'll text me if they have my number, and they'll say, approved, thank you very much, that logo looks really good. And I have to respond to them. I said, I need you to fill out the form. And I've had a couple of them say, hey, why do I need to fill out the form? I just sent you an email. And they'll go back and forth. I'm like, the amount of time that you could have filled, the amount of time that we went back and forth, you could have filled out that form like 10 times. Ma'am, at the end of the day, or sir, at the end of the day, this is the order of our business. We like to have everything formally. We can't take it in a text message or an email. Even when I've sent emails out for stuff that's in our store, typically I'll send out an email from the designs in the store, and since they're already designed, I don't necessarily need their approval, so I can just send it out to them as is. I put the text on it and I send it out to them. But sometimes I'll have a customer that says, hey, can you send me a sample of it or what have you, because they're feeling really insecure about how things are going to go. So I said, okay, that's fine. And so when I send it out in the email as a sample, I don't take the time out to log into the back end because they've already seen the design. I'll just put a watermark on it and I'll email it to them. And the instructions is respond back. If everything is well, respond back with approve. So they'll respond back with, I love it. Thank you. Send me the rest of the files. And I respond back to them. I said, thank you. Glad you love it. Please respond back with approve. They'll respond, I just said, why do I have, I just said, send me the rest of the files. ma'am, you have to respond back with approve. That is the way that we do business. So they don't like order. They don't like it. And so when I have that type of customer, I have to put my foot down really hard, to the point where I always tell people when I'm talking to people like that, I have to be very firm. I can't be, oh, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. You can't. I'm like, okay, yes, ma'am, I hear you. Okay, this is what you do. You place the order. These are our rules. And so they have a tendency to go back and forward because they don't like order. They don't like order. Number 11, they tend to be distrusting. They don't trust people. Oftentimes they'll use their past. And, my mama did this to me. My daddy did this to me. They'll use things from their past. They'll use things from their present. Matter of fact, a lot of people who leave churches, and I'm about to step on some feet when I say this one, but a lot of people who leave churches have the Jezebel spirit. Not all, because some people have genuinely dealt with church hurt, but there are a lot of people who have the Jezebel spirit who leave churches. And what they'll do is they'll try to use that as an excuse to justify being distrusting. And so it's a justification for, I feel like I should be able to do what I want to do in this particular church because of what happened to me in my last church. And so what they'll do is they may have genuinely, and I want y'all to understand something about manipulation or manipulative people. They may have genuinely been slighted at the last church. However, they won't tell you the whole story. They will not tell you the whole story. They'll have a lot of incidents where they slighted the pastor, they slighted other people in leadership, they slighted other people. They'll have a lot of incidents, but as soon as somebody responds back, claps back or something like that, they will utilize that. They'll go, oh my gosh, and so they'll come back and say, the pastor did this and the pastor did that, and I just felt like, how could he do that? He's supposed to be my pastor, or what have you. So when they come into another church and they start to rebel against some type of rule, like you can't park here, ma'am, or you can't do that, they'll utilize their history. They'll utilize things that happened to them in their previous church as a justification. So I'm sorry for going off, but just in my previous church, I've had to deal with this before, and what have you, and I just kind of, or what have you. And it's like, no, at the end of the day, what happened in your previous church happened in your previous church, but you can't bring that over here. We can't give you a refund based on what happened over there, what have you. So they're very distrusting. They use that as an excuse for them to not have really healthy friendships. They use that as an excuse to control their friends. They use that as an excuse to get what they want. Number 12, they are prone to envy. You deal with a Jezebelic friend, you're going to have to go if you plan to do anything great, if you plan to write a book, start a business or anything, you're going to have to get rid of your Jezebelic friends, because they're going to manifest as soon as you start doing something. As soon as God starts taking you up, as soon as God starts doing something. Now, they don't mind you starting businesses and writing books as long as they don't feel like you're going to be successful. Matter of fact, most Jezebels want to do it before you. They want to be able to say, yeah, me and my friend here, we're authors. All right, girl, high five. So let me, and the waitress is like, okay, thanks. Can I take your order? What would you like? What would you like, sis? What have you? But they are prone to envy. They like to make people jealous of them. They're always trying to make people jealous of them because they are so jealous of other people. They always are living my best life. Living my best life. They'll post up pictures on the internet, living my best life. They'll post up things so they're prone to envy. And because of their envy, one of the things, if you're dealing with a Jezebel personality, is they tend to punish you if you provoke their envy. They tend to punish you if you provoke their envy. So, like, let's just say I'm friends with a woman named, we'll just go back to Keisha. Let's just say I'm friends with Keisha. Keisha not cool, but, we working together. Let's just say we got a job and we're working in a call center together, what have you. Then they announce Tiffany just got promoted. She's going to punish me for that. She's going to punish you. Now, when they say it, she'll be like, yay, Tiffany, hey. But when I get around her, I'm going to notice that she's acting really funny. She's acting really weird. So we get in the car because she feels like she needs to remind me that in our friendship, she's the dominant, or she's the one who outranks. So we get in the car. Let's say we're going to lunch together. She's acting really funny. For the most part, she may not even want to go to lunch with me. So I go up to her and I say, hey sis, where we going to lunch today? Oh, girl, please, I gotta run some errands. Say, well, that's okay. I'm not that hungry. I can ride with you. No, I just really feel like I want to be alone. So you're on punishment. You're on punishment because you got promoted. You got promoted outside of her. So they have a tendency to deal with envy. They have a tendency to get really, like, they will talk to you about things, and then a lot of times and this is one I forgot to write down. They have a tendency to project, and they have a tendency to project their issues onto you or deflect. And so they'll sit back and say, lately you've been acting really strange. You're like, what? You just been acting really weird. No, you're the one that's been acting weird. What are you talking about? I've been the same. I've been talking to you, laughing with you, but you don't. No, the reason I've been acting like that, and then they'll try to find one little incident and they'll try to magnify that. They have a tendency to deflect and project. They don't take accountability for their own. They always are trying to point the fingers at you. So again, we're dealing with narcissism and the Jezebel Spirit, which are one and the same. Number 14, they use others as tools for their own benefit. Everybody in their life is nothing but a tool, including their children. Their children was a tool to help them to hold on to daddy and to help them to have the great American life. As a matter of fact, a lot of times they take their children through hell and high water because they expect their children to excel so that their children can make them look good. So they expect their children, you going to school, you're going to be a doctor. I don't want to hear nothing about you talking about you want to go and learn to do hair. You can forget all about that. You're going to go to school, you're going to be a doctor or what have you. So I skipped one, but we'll go back to that one. They use others as tools for their own benefits. Oftentimes, and this, I don't trust people who have a squad of goons, especially Christians, who have a squad of goons that they know that they can tap into. So a lot of times what they'll do, let's just say it's a leader who has a popular YouTube page or what have you, and somebody starts talking about him or starts saying things about that particular person or what have you, and he comes out and decides to respond. And a lot of times he may have his goons in the background. He'd be like, I got a squad, but they be always ready to roll out for me. But always tell them, man, listen, no, we ain't gonna do all that. We don't do all that no more or what have you. But they won't take the person through deliverance. They won't take the person to another because they're still using those people as tools. Like, okay, well, if I can't get them, if I can't intimidate them, if I can't use religion, if I can't use any of those things to intimidate that person, then maybe they'll understand my goons or what have you. So they'll keep a squad of goons around them at any given time. When you're dealing with females, they tend to drone. We call them drones. They tend to have drones. So they'll have people that they hang around that they'll attempt to drone, meaning I'm the queen bee and you guys are following behind me. I'm the queen bee. I'm the one that gets all the attention or what have you. But they have a tendency to use those particular females. They'll use the beauty. And we talked about that they'll use the beauty of the other females, so it can draw men in. So they can be sitting up in the squad smiling too. They'll use the strength. The other females are successful. They'll use that like, oh yeah, you see me and my crew, we are all successful people. We all got this going for us. We all got that going for us. But they're always using other people's as tools for their own benefit. Their children, they use them as tools. They use their dogs. The men will walk their dogs or even carry their children in an attempt to get a female. So they're always using people as tools to get something that they want. The one that I skipped was they require constant praise and affirmation. They require constant praise and affirmation. They want you to always tell them that they're smart, they're beautiful. They always want you to say something good about them. They always want you to praise them. Number 15. They tend to bully others through dominant control or seduce others through passive or passive-aggressive control. And we're going to be dealing with that. There are two different types of Jezebel, so I'm not going to spend too much time here until we get to that pointer. But Jezebel Spirit likes to utilize the personality of the person. If the person happens to have a dominant personality, they'll end up being a dominant Jezebel. If they tend to be shy, they'll typically become a passive Jezebel. And so the devil will utilize whatever personality they have. So dominant control, they'll use fear. They'll use, for example, they'll say, waitress, there's something that, yeah, you see this, that shouldn't be like that. because they want the food for free, or they'll scare their friends or what have you. They have a tendency to scare people into giving them what they want, and those are the dominant ones. Those tend to be more the extroverted ones. But when you're dealing with the passive ones, the fearful ones, or even the introverted ones, a lot of times they use passive aggressiveness, passivity. They'll use seduction, some type of manipulation. They'll use one of their tools to get what they want, but they like to hide, especially the covert ones. They tend to hide behind their personality, so they come off as really shy. I'm talking about the passive ones. They come off as really shy and sweet. As a matter of fact, they will hang around somebody who is extroverted, who comes off as more domineering, and so when there's an issue in the friendship, it's easy for them to project and say it's that person, and most of society will believe them because they just come off as sweet. And yeah, I had to leave her alone because she called and she cursed me out. And they be like, oh, you just always been so sweet. And I don't even get it. Like, I was her friend. I don't even get it. And she'll have you mad at that particular female, but that person happens to be extroverted, but maybe she's an Ahab. She's an extroverted Ahab, and you got an introverted Jezebel. So the extroverted Ahab looks like the problem because she has a more dominant personality. And so that's one of the reasons I learned to really stay away from passive. Like I've got around people who I knew had Jezebel spirits. But because, where I am now, it doesn't necessarily bother me. For the most part, I just know that they got to get their freedom at some point. But when it comes to the really, really passive ones, I'm really careful around them because they oftentimes use their personality. And it's oftentimes really successful to use their personalities to, get people to believing that, hey, they're the real victims, when actually they are the opposers. They are the predators. So let's go ahead and move on. Number 16, they're addicted to fantasies, especially about success. They're always spending a lot of time thinking about where they feel like they're supposed to be. They're always fantasizing about, like, some man passed by them. They're fantasizing about him. They're fantasizing about, the things that they believe are supposed to happen. So they have a tendency to live in the fantasy realm. Number 17, to try to move a little bit faster. They love to name drop. If they know anybody of power, let's just say in any organization, if you start working at an organization and they happen to be cool with the boss, they'll say, let's just say the boss's name is, I try to be careful because, you can say a name and it's like, then you realize you know somebody by that name and then they feel like you're talking about them. So let's just say that the boss's name is Jane Doe. And so instead of them saying, they'll say, yeah, because like I was talking to Jane on yesterday. So they're trying to say, I have personal, intimate access to Jane. I was talking to Jane on yesterday. And so we were talking about this, and Jane said this, and and they'll try to show some type of personal affiliation that they may have with Jane, but they love to name drop. They like to get around people in power, and they like to use those people's names. As a matter of fact, Jezebel in the Bible, she signed Ahab's name on many documents. She signed Ahab's names on many documents because her name really had no power. So they like to use the names of other people to get what they want. One of the ways that you can kind of curb that behavior is to say, oh, that's cool, that's good, because I'm about to be, I'm going out with Jane, or I'm doing this with Jane on tomorrow. And they'd be like, oh, really? And it scares the crap out of them, but they love to name drop. Number 18, they read into everything. They tend to be super sensitive and very suspicious. So like you could be having, like you have to walk on eggshells with the narcissistic personality, the Jezebel. And the reason for that is because they're afraid that you're just as cunning as they are. They're always suspicious that you may be doing the same thing. So you have to walk on eggshells. So you say something and you're not even talking about them, but they'll take it like you're talking about them. They'll take it like, yeah. And so they'll be sitting there looking like, yeah, because that's not the type of person I am. It's like, no, I'm not talking about you. You know, I'm not talking about you or what have you, but they read into everything. They tend to be very super sensitive, and they tend to be suspicious. They tend to be very suspicious. Number 19, they are giving. However, anything Jezebel gives you has an expectation attached to it. They will give you the shirt off of their back. They will give you whatever it is that you're asking for if they feel like it's going to give them any type of leverage. It gives them an opportunity to gain any measure of control over you, but there is expectation attached to it. So a good example is a mother who has a Jezebel spirit will oftentimes pay her children's rent. She'll do certain things for her children, but as soon, like if she has a daughter, well, let's just say she has a son. She has a son, and her son, she's Ahabbed him. He's fearful. He doesn't keep a job very well. He has issues or what have you, but he goes out there. He tries to live on his own or what have you. His mother has Jezebeled him. She's kind of made him her property, her husband of sorts or what have you, and they're still cleaving in an ungodly way. In a perverted way. It's almost twisted way that they cleave. So what she'll tend to do, let's just say he goes out and he's like, I wonder what that noise is. But she has a tendency to say, she'll pay his rent, and she'll be complaining about paying his rent and stuff like that for him. But as soon as she finds out he has a girlfriend, I'm not paying your rent. Tell that B to pay your rent or what have you. So they're really jealous, very competitive, but they're really giving, but it has expectation attached to it. You have to stay doing a certain thing. Like you can't have certain people at your house if there are certain things you're not allowed to do, and if you do those things, then Jezebel is going to punish you. And so she'll give money, she'll create a dependency, or he'll create a dependency with a person. This is the reason I tell many of you who come on the videos and ask questions about, hey, you said you got a Jezebel mother, and I tell you, stop taking from her. Stop taking her money. They'll create a dependency with you. That dependency gives them the power. And so whenever you don't do what they want you to do, or you don't say what they want you to say, they can utilize that money to control you. A lot of rich Jezebels have their children, they'll utilize the will to control their children. They'll say, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to strike you out of the will or what have you. And then their children end up being all Jezebelic and fearful or what have you. And the children end up knocking mom and daddy off, end up, killing them or something like that, because the Jezebel created a dependency with them, and the fear of not being able to access their parents' wealth is almost too great for them in their minds to bear. But they're very giving, but anything they give has expectation attached to it. Number 20, they love exposing others, especially leaders. A moment of silence. They love exposing others. They like to get around leaders, and they have a tendency to do this with a leader. They'll try to get close to a leader, and then they'll turn around and be like, because I'm trying to tell you, she don't want me to tell what I know. Whenever they don't get what they want, she don't want me to tell what I know. Because, everything ain't cake, all caked up and all battered up the way that she try to make it look out. But she don't want me to talk about what I know, because I can expose some stuff. Every Jezebel I've ever had to confront has used the term expose with me. And in 100% of the cases, they had absolutely nothing to expose. Because I wasn't in any type of sin. I hadn't given them anything to expose. But they always use the term expose. It's like that is one of the Jezebel's words. Like they're always threatening to expose. So I get really suspicious of people. For example, if I'm friends or I'm building a friendship with a person, and they say, "Cause girl, I was going to this church and they don't want me to expose them." When I hear expose, I'm already looking for Jezebel from that moment. From that point on, I'm looking, I know Jezebel up in there. I know Jezebel up in there, because that is something they have a tendency to do. And one of the reasons I gave you guys a moment of silence is because you guys have heard me say this before. A lot of people with the Jezebel spirit are broken. They got church hurt, and they have a tendency to attack pastors on social media. You got to remember that Jezebel in the Bible, she was killing off God's prophets. So a lot of times what Jezebels do is they'll hear about a scandal about a pastor, and they join their voice in. because they try to use fear in numbers. They'll join their voice in an attempt. They'll share the stuff. They'll do everything that they can in an attempt to bring that pastor down. And then as soon as, then they kind of shrink back into whatever personality they have, whether it is dominant control or passive control. They'll try to shrink back. But they have a tendency to try to expose people, always exposing people. They never cover anybody. They'll only cover you as long as you are beneficial to them, or they feel like there's something they're going to get from you eventually. But the minute you disappoint Jezebel, they're always, always threatening to expose you, either directly or indirectly. Last one, we talked about this one, 21, Jezebels are unrealistic. They're unrealistic. They have unrealistic expectations. Some of the stuff they say is really just outlandish. So a lot of times they'll sit back and they'll say, what was I? I'm sorry, guys. I got a little distracted. But they're unrealistic. A lot of times they'll sit back and say stuff like, she got mad at me and cursed me out, and it's like, girl, please, I don't want your man. And you're like, okay, yeah, but what did you do? She always thinks people want her man. What did you do? So, okay, right, I was sitting in a car with him, but me and him friends. Sis, he married. Why would you be sitting in a car with somebody's husband? Why would you be sitting out in the car? That doesn't look right. Why would you be sitting in a car with somebody's husband? I ain't think nothing of it. I just want to talk to him. You couldn't just walk with him and talk to him? Why'd you have to go get into a so yeah, she got a right to say something to you, what have you. And so you think that too, or what have you. Then they get mad at you for telling them the truth. But they're very unrealistic. They're very entitled. They feel like, I don't see nothing wrong with the stuff that I did. I don't see nothing wrong with it. And they're always looking for people who side with them. They're always looking for people who say there's nothing wrong with their behavior. There's nothing wrong with the things they've done. They're always looking for people who say, yeah, that's just crazy. What did she do? She called the police on you? Yeah, she called the police. You bust her window. Yeah, it's not like I had a gun or nothing. I just threw a rock through the window. Sis, you're unrealistic. If you threw a rock through a window, you committed a crime. So she's supposed to call the police. But they're very unrealistic, and so they feel like you're not supposed to. Thank you so much for Sister Graciela and Sister Kenyatta for sowing the seed. Thank y'all. Thank you. But they're very unrealistic. Very unrealistic. So I want to give you guys 5 misconceptions about the Jezebel spirit or the narcissistic personality. 5 misconceptions. Number 1, Jezebels are controlling. Or they use dominant control. Not all Jezebels use dominant control. A lot of them use manipulation. They use, they will tell you, matter of fact, they'll tell you their business in order to get access to your business. So they'll come up to you and they'll say, girl, so like, I've never told nobody this before, but I used to be promiscuous. And then you just like, oh, dang, yeah, I used to be a hoe too. And so you go over there and you start talking or what have you. But they'll use that. They tell you different things about themselves so that you can tell them about yourself, and they can use that as leverage. They can use that to hold over your head. So they don't always use dominant control. They're not always saying, sit down over here. Sometimes it's manipulation. Sometimes, again, one of the ways I've seen passive Jezebels try to do is they'll try to control you by not speaking. Like I told you guys when I used to work with a female, one of her things was whenever she felt like I needed to go on punishment, her thing was she felt like, okay, I'm just going to kind of ignore Tiffany today. So, she'll be talking to you, then she just started trying to play the ignore game. Just start acting a certain way. That was her punishment. Then she'll try to switch back. And I would tell her, like, I said, I don't do crazy. I just want to let you know I don't do crazy. I believe in communication. I believe if I do something that you don't like, tell me that, Tiffany, I don't like this. That's just the way I'm just black and white. Tiffany, you said this and I ain't like it. But the reason that they don't confront is because what makes them mad is unrealistic. Remember I said the Jezebels are unrealistic. They don't confront because they can't say, I got real ticked off because you got promoted. I got real ticked off because the boss gave you a compliment at the meeting. I got real ticked off or what have you. But instead they'll just start punishing you. So one of her ways was she just started acting really funny. We say in Mississippi, she acting funny. She'll start acting real funny. And I'll be sitting there like, did I do something? Then I go to reflecting back on other conversations we had. Okay, I said this. I don't think I said, no, I don't. Well, maybe I look like I was. And so when you're dealing with Jezebels, again, you have to kind of be on your best behavior. You have to send a smiling face emoji, behind your words, because you're scared to use exclamation points and stuff, because you're always like, I don't want them to take this some type of way. You're always trying to, be careful. But the reality is, when you're dealing with the Jezebel personality, they're using that to their advantage, but they tend to be very controlling, either dominant control or passive control. Passive control, like I said, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll, just kind of not call you or not answer your calls, and then you go on punishment. I had an old friend of mine, and whenever she got mad at me, she would say, I need to consecrate. I told you, she said, I need to consecrate. So that was a punishment. You're on punishment for, you offended me, so you're now on punishment, and I can't talk to you for a week, or what have you. And the way that God delivered me from that particular friendship was, a lady reached out to me and said, hey, listen, I got a daughter, her spiritual daughter. She's like, this guy she's talking to, some things he's doing, and I know you do a lot of talking on it. She told me, and I was like, oh no, that's control. He needs deliverance or what have you. So she was like, I told her to call you, so to just explain the situation to you. And the girl called me. She said, when the guy, anytime he gets mad at me, he says he needs to consecrate for like a week or two, and he doesn't call me. And I said, no, that's control. You need to end that relationship. I said, right now, he may be the one. He may be the person that you're going to end up marrying, but right now he needs to get some deliverance. I said, because he has to get to the point where he learns how to communicate. You can't punish people by just cutting them out of your life for a little while and then just showing back up like, all right, you got the message now, or what have you. And she said, I know you're telling the truth. She says the same thing God told me. I said, it's a mechanism of control. And so any person who doesn't have the know-how or even the heart to sit down and talk to you and say, let's talk about this because I don't like the way that you're communicating with me. Any person who doesn't have the wherewithal to say that is using control as a mechanism. And I say you need to put some distance between you and him for now until he get. And she said, thank you. She said, I receive it, because she said that's the same thing God told me. And as soon as I hung up the phone, and the Lord said, okay, now why you're not using that with her? And I'm like, oh, he's like, you won't take that off of a man, but a friend, you'll take it. You're taking it off of her. And so when she does that, so the next time she did it, when she said that, I called her out on it. I was like, listen, I don't do that little controlling stuff. We pull that witchcraft out the friendship. I don't do witchcraft. What have you. But they are controlling. Number 2, and these are misconceptions, is that they're dominant control. But they are controlling, but they don't necessarily use dominant control. They can use passive control or seduction. Sometimes it could be a Facebook post that's directed at you, but they don't necessarily tag you or call you and say what's wrong. But so they're not always dominant. Number 2, another misconception is that all Jezebels are extroverted. We talked about that. Some of them are shy and some of them are introverted. Now, shy and introverted is not one and the same. A lot of people think that they're one and the same, but they're not. There are some shy Jezebels. There are some introverted Jezebels. And so they don't necessarily use dominance to control people. They just find other ways to control to get what they want. And those are the ones who are, they'll go on social media and they'll create profiles and leave comments under other names. Like they become keyboard warriors and stuff like that. But they have a tendency to be, they can be introverted or extroverted. They can be assertive or they can be shy. They're not always extroverted. Number 3, another misconception is Jezebels want to rise to the top of the hierarchy. Jezebels don't necessarily want to be at the top of the hierarchy. They don't want to be the number 1 person in power because it exposes them. A lot of times they want to be in positions of power, but they like to get right under that person or get somewhere in the middle or what have you. So they can always, if things fall apart, they can always point to the other person, but they like to try to puppetize that particular person. They're trying to bring that person under their control, but they're not always wanting to get to the top. Another misconception, number 4, is that Jezebels are unattractive. That was an old misconception. I think we've kind of gotten delivered from that now. Back in the old days, there were two types of Jezebels that people look for. That was the woman who put on a whole lot of lipstick and who had the wherewithal to come into a church wearing a really, really tight dress. Women would often call her a Jezebel, or somebody who was older, unattractive, and older and unattractive, maybe out of shape or what have you. But not all Jezebels are unattractive. As a matter of fact, a large majority of them are very attractive, and they come off as really sweet. They have so I want you to think about this. There are some Jezebel personalities who are very attractive and very sweet natured. So they have a passive personality. They're introverted. They don't necessarily have a dominant personality. And so those particular ones are able to hide a lot better. And I believe that they're Satan's favorite ones. Those are the ones that Satan loves to use because they can kind of slither in, because people who are attractive tend to get favor in certain situations or what have you. So they tend to slither in a little bit more. They can get close a lot faster because of the way that they look, or what have you. Then especially when they have a very subtle meat type personality, when they come off as sweet or what have you, it's easy for them to rise or what have you, because of the way they look and the way that they present themselves. And the last misconception that we're mentioning is that Jezebels are women. Jezebel can be in a man or a woman. As a matter of fact, the church believes that the majority of Jezebels are women. However, when you're dealing with psychologists, they believe that most narcissists, the majority of narcissists are men. Now, narcissist is the Jezebel personality. So what that tells me is that if you really want to know the truth, there's probably about an equal number of Jezebels that are in men as they are in women. Jezebelic men tend to be very abusive, very controlling, very jealous, very competitive. They like to try to create soul ties really fast with women. They'll say, I love you within a week. I'm falling in love with you. They kind of tend to move really, really fast. But when they get into a relationship, they'll use your love against you. Your love becomes a weapon. So it becomes a thing where if you don't do this, I'm gonna leave, or if you do this, they'll kind of withdraw from you. So you're always panicking about the relationship. So there are 2 types of Jezebels or narcissists we're going to deal with real quick. Number 1 is a dominant or overt Jezebel. Number 2 is a passive or covert Jezebel. Again, this is the narcissistic personality as well. The dominant, overt Jezebel is the one that you see that most people can actually readily identify as a Jezebel. They can see this particular man or particular woman and identify them because they come in and they're kind of sucking the energy out of a room, and they're starting to dominate people, and you can be having fun in the room, and then all of a sudden they walk in and everybody kind of it just shifts the atmosphere, what have you, because they always bring their atmosphere with them. It's like bring your own beer. But I'm thinking about when I lived in Conyers and I went to a dog park. I did a blog on that. I'm going to be blogging again soon, guys, but I did a blog on something that I experienced and what have you. So I went to the dog park and I taken Milo, and I had already renounced dog parks. I said I wasn't going to go back to any more dog parks, but this particular time I decided, my dog loves dog parks, and I hate to take that from him. I hate to take it from him. So I decided to take him back to a dog park, and that's what I did. And so when we first got there, Milo was having a great time. He was having a grand time. And my fears of dog park was starting to kind of, just trying to lift off of me. I'm like, this is such a great experience because it's a big, beautiful dog park, and it was just so sunny outside. The people were friendly. And one thing about dog parks is that you will become friends, or you'll not become friends, but you'll start getting to know the people in the dog park. You got to go sit down and watch your dogs play. So you go sit beside each other. They ask you a question. What kind of dog is he? Oh, he's so cute. And he runs up and he's, what have you. So Milo was having the time of his life. And I was feeling like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. But I had already renounced dog parks. I had already said, in my heart, and even said in a prayer, I'm not taking my dog back to no dog park. But he's running around the dog park and having a good time. And I was like, okay, it's not like Florida dog parks. It's a whole lot better, what have you. And then all of a sudden, and all these dogs, huge dogs over there. And none of them were aggressive. Every one of them were having fun. All of them, they were running together. Milo jumping, and Milo's usually the fastest dog there. So Milo's running around. He's chasing, and he'll let them do chase him and what have you. Then he turns around and he's having a blast. And I'm just loving seeing my dog having a good time. And then all of a sudden, this man brings his dog in, which really should have been on a little dog side. He was kind of a medium-sized dog, but he was kind of more short than he was. So he bought that dog in, and the dog looked really beat up. Looked like the dog needed, and I said this in my blog, the dog looked like it needed an exorcism. Or it looked like somebody had attempted to exorcise the dog and failed. But the dog came into the dog park, and the very first thing that I noticed, and this was God, thank you, Sister Lamanda, for the seed. Thank you. But one of the things that I noticed is the very first thing that the dog did was the dog went and the dog just started acting, he walked over to the dogs and he started biting at the dogs, growling at them and stuff. And all the dogs started trying to avoid him. And before I noticed it, and see, God uses things like this to minister to me. And I'm noticing this dog, all these dogs were running around in unity before this dog arrived. I'm talking about there was no clique of dogs. All the dogs were in unity. They were in sync. They were all running around and playing with each other and having a good time. But when this dog came, it went straight off into the crowd, and it was just biting at other dogs. And so I looked at the guy, the owner was an older guy, and he was like, oh, he's just an alpha male. This is what they tend to say when they have aggressive dogs. He's just an alpha male. He doesn't mean any harm. And I'm like, no, it's not okay for your dog to bite people's dogs. And so that's his personality. Jezebel Spirit in him feels entitled. He felt like it was okay for his dog to bite other people's dogs. He felt like, well, he's just being an alpha male. He's fine. He's just, what have you. And so I tried to be nice and not say anything. And he kept doing that. Before long, I noticed there were 4 groups of dogs in the park. It was no longer one group. They were divided up into cliques. It almost looked like, you permit somebody's hair, you part it down the middle, and you part it again into 4 sections. That's how the park looked. So all of a sudden, there was a group of dogs over here, a group of dogs over here, a group of dogs over here, and a group of dogs over here. And what he would do is he'll run off toward a group. And when he would do that, and these were huge dogs, all of them would sit down and they would do, they'll go into the passive mode, like, okay, we're submitting to you. My dog, on the other hand, hadn't been exposed to many people. I think that's my issue too. He's like me. That dog was like his owner, and my dog was like me. He was not socialized very well, and I think not being socialized can work in our favor sometimes. But my dog didn't understand this whole, you supposed to come in and you gonna rule the show type thing. He didn't understand that. My dog was just pretty much like, we all playing together or what have you, and if you outrank me, you outrank me, but we ain't got to go through all the biting and stuff. So the dog ran over to do that with my dog. My dog is a fast runner. My dog has greyhound in him, so he can go. But he came over to my dog and he did that, and my dog played and jumped over him, and he got upset. So he tried to chase my dog. My dog ran, and he did the same thing he does with the other dogs. He'll run laps. So the dog got tired, couldn't catch my dog. He tried it a couple of times. So eventually, my dog came over there where I was. I was sitting down next to this other woman, and she tried to give my dog a treat. And the dog came over and attacked my dog, and they got into a fight or what have you. But that was this man, he bought that dog in or what have you, and that was it. So I don't remember what the point was, but at the end of that, I did a message on the Jezebel Spirit using that, showing how Jezebel tends to divide. They divide churches, they divide religions, they divide families. When you have the Jezebel in your family, you'll find that your family is hugely divided. You'll find that, auntie over here don't deal with auntie over there. You'll find a whole lot because the Jezebel Spirit is in this auntie and that cousin or what have you, and everybody is trying to find some measure of control. Everybody's trying to find and people start dividing because they're trying to say, well, no, this auntie is right, no, this cousin is right, no, grandma right. And so everybody begins to divide because of that particular spirit. So again, there are 2 types of Jezebels. There's a dominant Jezebel, which is also the overt narcissistic personality, and then there's a passive Jezebel, which is the covert narcissistic personality. The covert narcissistic personality has a tendency to be more, they'll post up passive aggressive statuses. They will rarely ever confront. They always cast themselves as the victim. Jezebels like to cast themselves as victims either way. However, the dominant one will use fear as a mechanism of control. They'll get loud, or they'll issue some type of threat. But the passive one doesn't necessarily threaten you. A lot of times what they'll do is they'll utilize their personality, they'll utilize their baby face, their innocent demeanor, to get people to believe that they are the real victims and you are the problem, what have you. So what they'll try to do is they'll try to divide people from you. They'll try to keep you from having any friends. They'll try to keep people from having any type of relationship with you. So again, a lot of times they'll try to show people how they feel like you should be treated, and not necessarily by telling people, but by demonstrating that this is how we treat her, or what have you. And so they're trying to give this off so that they can say, okay, you see, if you want to get to everybody else, if you want to have friends in his family, if you want to get along with the family, you're gonna have to get along with me. Or if you want to have friends in his in the workplace, then you're gonna have to go through me, or what have you. So I want to give you guys a few games that Jezebels like to play. Again, today I've already feel like I've been exhaustive enough. Thank you. I've already feel like I've been exhaustive enough, so I'm going to give you guys 15 games that Jezebels like to play. And next week we'll come back and tackle this subject again. Next week we're going to be talking about how to get past or get over or take authority over that particular spirit in your life. So I'm going to give you guys 15 games that Jezebels like to play. Number one, they try to keep their friends separate from one another. So if I'm friends with Jezebel and she has other friends, she will not typically introduce me or invite me to come places with her and her other friends. Now, if those friendships were already established, like if she came into a group that was already established, she can't necessarily divide them the way she wants to. She will try. But for the most part, she's not going to invite any new people in, because Jezebels like to manipulate the people. So they want to manipulate these people's perception of you, and they want to manipulate your perception of those people. They want to manipulate, so they want to be able to come and hang out with you whenever they're mad at them, or whenever they're not getting their way, or whenever they feel like there's something about you that they want to draw from, and then they want to be able to go over here to this person or this group of people and take what they want from them. So they always try to keep their friends separate. You will rarely ever have Jezebel say, hey, me and my girls are hanging out, would you like to come out with us? The only time she'll do something like that is if not inviting you is obvious. Like if she's having a birthday party or a baby shower, and she feels by this time she's already perverted everybody's view of you, or what have you. And then if you do come, you'll notice that she treats you differently. She doesn't treat you the same way she typically treats you. So she's not hanging out with you like she normally does. Like normally she's like, what up, girl? But now all of a sudden it's like you come to the baby shower and she's sitting over there with them, or what have you. Come walking to me like, what y'all eating? And she's like, chips. So she's acting funny, and you just like, why you acting like that? You don't never act like that, or what have you. And it's because she's talked about you to the other people, and so she doesn't want to come off as phony. She doesn't want to come off as being a gossip. So she wants to she has to hold on to that. So she try to keep her friends separate one from another. Number two, they pit their friends against one another. So they'll tell that friend something bad about you, and they'll tell this particular friend something bad about or they'll tell you something bad about their friend. So they like to pit their friends one against another, especially if you do something to make them mad. They'll go talk to their friend. So now you got that friend over there that want to fight you, and you don't even know what you did. Why are you over there acting like I don't even know you like that? But they pit their friends against one another. Again, that's because they use people as tools. So all of their friends, if you happen to be gangster, they want to get around you so they can feel protected. They want to make sure that you stay in a gangster, you don't never get delivered from your gangster, because they want to be able to utilize that should something happen. If they feel threatened or what have you, they want to be able to say, well, hey, I got this problem. I got this girl that's over here threatening to fight me, and what have you. And they want their friends to come rolling up and be like, yo, what's up, what have you. They try to pit their friends against one another. Number three, they punish the people in their lives for excelling or doing anything they believe they should not be doing. These punishments are oftentimes passive aggressive. So let's go back to the workplace. You work with Jezebel, and your boss suddenly announces at a meeting that, hey, let's just say your name is Joe. Okay, so we're gonna be Joe, stand up. And you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And Joe stands up. He's like, what's up? Like, Joe, you've done a really great job, and we want to let you guys know that we are looking to promote Joe to supervisor. And we like, and it's so Jezebel, his friend, will be over there clapping, but he ain't happy for Joe. He's not happy for Joe, and Joe will probably be getting a $15 raise an hour. And he's like, so from there, Joe's on punishment. Joe's on punishment for that. So they will punish you for excelling or doing anything. Or if Joe announced he's getting married, he's like, hey, I'm thinking about doing it. He's like, doing what? Popping the question. Man, you know good and well, you was out with another girl like 4 months ago. Yeah, but that was what showed me that I was really wrong, and I'm really to settle down. And I know that Keisha's the one. I know Keisha's the one. She's a really good woman. Man, please, you ain't gonna make no good husband. You know this, you will know that, or what have you. And then if Joe persists, he'll either go tell Keisha, try to find some type of way to put Keisha in a position where Keisha can find out, or he'll take his distance from him, because they have a tendency to be very envious people. Now, before, they ask a lot of questions about your personal life. What happened? Why are you crying? Come on, come on, let's go outside right quick. Let me talk to you. You good? No, let's go. Let's go sit over here. Now let's get out of everybody. And they do that so they can extract all the information out of you. They try to get as much information. If you pay attention to their face, you maybe see a slight smirk. I forgot what they call it, but they take joy in other people's pain. But they like to know a lot of things about your personal life, so they can hold it over your head. And it also gives them, and I heard this psychologist saying this, it actually gives them relief from their envy. So if you're in a bad spot, it gives them a sense of relief, like, whoo, because the envy was wearing them out. Jealousy is tiring, it's draining. So it's been wearing them out. It gives them relief because now you're in a bad spot. So it allows them to look down at you. Whereas at one point they was looking up to you, but they're struggling, steady trying to pull you down or what have you. But it gives them a little bit of relief when you tell them something bad has happened to you or somebody else. So it allows them to finally start looking down at that person. So they ask a lot of questions about your personal life. And when you're dealing with these type of people, you don't give them an answer. If you're going through something, you just say, I'm good. I'm good. They like to find out things that you're going through. Number 5, they enjoy hearing about the misfortunes of others, especially if they are jealous or mad at the people who are experiencing the misfortune. They love to hear about their exes failing and falling. They love to hear about women that they were jealous of being demoted or fired. They love to hear stories about that. And even though they'll try not to smile, you'll notice a little slight smirk on their face, and then they'll get excited and be like, girl, that's just sad. You want to go out? And you're like, dang, she'll never ask to go out. Let's go out to eat. So it's a celebration at that point. They enjoy hearing about the misfortune of others. Number 6, they like to throw rocks and hide their hands. Jezebels don't like to be confronted. They always want to pass off the responsibility and the blame to Ahab or whoever else they can pass it off to in their camps, but they don't like to be confronted about their ways. They don't like you to point out their narcissistic ways. They don't like you to point out their pride, because they tend to have a Leviathan spirit as well. But they don't like you to point out those things. They just want you to think that they are on your side, because they're the type of people who will throw a rock and then come over and be like, are you okay? Oh my gosh, who threw that rock? Somebody call 911. And they'll put stuff on your head all the while. It's just like, okay, wait, why are you holding it over my head real, it's like you holding it over my head real hard or what have you. Why you covering up my face? I ain't dead. But they have a tendency to throw rocks and hide their hands. Number 7, they like to draw people in using flattery, seduction, or manipulation. But once they've soul tied themselves to those people, they use confusion. This is one of the things you will always find with Jezebel is confusion. They use confusion, dominant control, passive control, rumors, or whatever tools they can use to control them. Every Jezebel, and I've seen this especially with passive Jezebels, passive Jezebels, especially the young ones, they like to go and get close to people, an individual at a time. So you can tell who they're working on at any given moment. So they working on Brother Troy, and all of a sudden they'll spend a lot of time talking to Brother Troy, opening up to, telling Brother Troy a little secret about themselves. Brother Troy gets something in his beard, they're cleaning it out the beard. They'll sit there and they'll move in and they'll make him feel like me and her have a special connection. But as soon as they've gotten that soul tie, as soon as they got that person to believe, because soul ties are established oftentimes through beliefs, after they've gotten the person to believe that, hey, we got a special connection, they'll actually discard the person, meaning they won't hang around them as much. The person is left feeling confused, like, did I do something to her or what have you? But you'll notice that they're doing it to another person, and then they'll do it to another person, they'll do it to another person, and then as soon as they realize that they're losing their stronghold on Brother Joe, they'll go back over to Brother Joe and they'll start telling him, hey, they'll just start drawing him back in again. So that's why they're always dealing with depression. They're always out of energy, because they're always trying to maintain so many different relationships. They're always trying to find some type of way to keep Joe over here in love with them, keep Mary as a friend, even though they can't stand her. They want Mary's position and Mary's husband. They're always trying to find some way, and they're having to keep everybody separate. So it's a really hard job to be a Jezebel. It's a very, very hard job to be a Jezebel. Where was I? Oh, they like to draw people in using flattery, which is number 7, seduction or manipulation. But once they've soul tied themselves to those people, and my computer will get dark at that moment. Give me a second. Once they soul tie themselves to those people, they use confusion, dominant control, passive control, rumors, or whatever tools they can use to control them. Let's move on. Number 8, they make backhanded or passive aggressive remarks. Sis, you get a little chubby, ain't you? Is to bring you down. You get a little chubby wherever they feel that they are better than you. They like to keep conversations in those range. They don't ever want to go and have a conversation in an area or about a topic that you are there. What is the word? All the time when I listen to the videos, the word comes straight to me. But where you are in control, or you excel above them. They don't like to talk about those type of subjects. They will always take you to an area where they feel like they are in control. They feel like I one-upped you over here. So if they're in shape and you're not in shape, we're gonna always talk about your weight. Every time I see you, what did you eat? Oh my gosh, what did you eat? You gotta stop doing that. But if we start talking about, why haven't you launched that business yet? I am. But girl, what about your weight? It's deflection. They don't like to do that because they don't like to feel out of control. They always want to feel like they're in control. They always want to feel like, they're needed. I think a lot of times when we're dealing with people like that, they're so used, their parents probably, they dealt with rejection and abandonment, and their parents use their love and held their love over their heads. And so they're always trying to find some type of place in your life where they can prove themselves to be useful or what have you. So when you go into an area where they're not necessarily useful, they begin to panic or what have you, because you excel in that area. They begin to panic. And so when they begin to panic, they're just like, nah. And so they'll come back to the area where they feel like, I'm in control. I'm in control over here when it comes to this or that. Those are the areas, and they're always looking to bring you under. They're always looking to take you under their wings. They're not necessarily looking to come under your wings for anything. They always want to bring people. It's always about usurping authority. It's always about getting you under their control. Let's see. Number 8. Okay, that was it. They make backhanded or passive aggressive remarks. So they'll make little slight marks and stuff, and you just be sitting there like, was that shade? Was that shade? Was that shade? And I'm not talking about a one-time thing, because I know even for myself, sometimes I could be talking to people, and then sometimes I'll say stuff, and I'd be like, dang, I hope that, I'll come back and I'll overthink it, and I'll be like, I hope that didn't come off as shade, because I really didn't mean nothing by it. But you'll notice this is something that they continuously do. They're always making passive-aggressive, backhanded remarks or what have you. You get a little chunky, your neck getting fat. Number 9, they love to be the go-between in between two people. They rarely ever, this is the reason they like to keep all of their friendships separate. They love to be the go-between, especially if there's a fight going on. They want to try to fix everything, and they're going to come tell you, well, yeah, like she said this about you and she said that and what have you, because they're going to try to keep you guys separate, but they love to be the go-between. If you guys start reconciling, they want to act as if they're the ones who are reconciling you. They love to be the go-between. Number 10, they can be found hanging out around or flattering people in power in any organization. If you want to see what the Jezebels are, look for the most powerful people in any organization, whether it be a church, a business, or any type of organization. You will always see people who have the Jezebelic spirit they will always gravitate toward the people in power. And as a matter of fact, there is a dimension. I mean, it's you'll notice that if you happen to be a person who's not in power, you'll notice that they treat people differently. Like the people who are not in power, they roll their eyes, they put their head in the air, they don't speak, they act real funny toward people like that. But when they see people who are in power, supervisors, managers, if they see anybody in power, they like, hey, and they run up and hug them, and they're giving gifts, and you're just like, wow, that's a whole different person than what I saw. Then a whole different person than what I see how she treat the other people, so when they feel like these people can't do anything for them, they'll treat those people completely different. But whenever you see them getting around people who are in power, or people who have something they want, or even people who they feel are beautiful, they feel like, well, you can make me look good. It's a different thing. You'll notice, like, if you pay attention to them, they have a type of person that they tend to go around. So if this particular woman, they won't fool with her because she's too discerning. She's too common sense, tell you like it is. They won't fool with her. They gotta find people. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've seen, like when you're dealing with the beautiful Jezebels, they like to hang around. I told you guys this before. They like to hang around other women who are beautiful, or what have you, and they're always using your face as a leverage. And so a lot of times, what they'll do, like, let's just say you got 3 Jezebels in the club. Or you got one Jezebel and her 2 friends, and all her friends are gorgeous. And so she's sitting there. Now, she's pretty herself, but she just wants beautiful people around her because, she just fell into the trap of thinking this whole Hollywood thing is true, that men are going to draw closer to that, and that's going to give her some type of leverage or what have you. So she's sitting there, and this guy comes up and starts talking to them. And he's saying this and all that. So one of the things you'll notice is she's always trying to get her friends to show their face. So the guy can be talking, and then she'd be like, let's just say the friend's name is, I'm trying to see the female name, Jane. She'll tap Jane on the shoulder. Jane turn around, and she'll say, meet Mark. So Jane look, and so she's always trying to show off her friends. She's always trying to show off their faces or whatever. She wants the guy to see this is my crew. This is what they look like. And what have you. So she's always trying to show off her friends, even their bodies. And she'd be like, Jane, get out the car. Get out the car. Yeah, my friend, she's in the car. And hey, Jane, come out the car. And Jane's in the car like, I don't feel like it. Jane, come out the car, please. And so she's trying to get Jane to come out because Jane got a bad body. And so she wants the guy to see, and a lot of people don't realize. They'd be like, well, why would she want to do that? Because wouldn't that bring the man's attention to her? No, she's using her friend. It's almost like usurping authority of the friend. She's using her friend as her way of saying, see, everybody around me looks like this. So you're actually getting prized material because, all of us were created in excellence. It's always like look at Jane or what have you. Y'all got to remember, I came out of the world. Y'all got to remember that I came out of the world. I've been around this spirit many times. So let's go ahead and move on. Oh, number 11, they usurp authority everywhere they go. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time there because we talked about that. Everywhere they go, they're always usurping authority, always trying to become the go-to person. They're always trying to become the voice. They're always trying to become something. So even when they get married, they're always usurping the authority. They don't like hierarchy. They don't like organization or order. So they're always trying to mess up the order so that they can take a position of power. Number 12, they see people as their property. So they'll often try to make you go through them to get to someone they have stolen authority from. So like a mother who has a son, she got this fine, good looking son. He's going to college and doing all of it. The mama got a Jezebel spirit. The mother will oftentimes try to bring you under her authority. You want my son, you better get close to me. You better work. You better work it over here with me, because she sees her son as her property. And if he's in agreement with her, if he's letting his mother control her, I dare to tell you that's not a man that you want to give yourself over to, because in order to have him, you have to go under his mother's control. In order to have him, you have to go under his mother's control. I've seen guys who have mothers who have the Jezebel spirit who the guy didn't ascribe to it. So the guy will say, hey, listen, at the end of the day, no, you don't have to go under my mom. But then there are some guys who their mothers manipulate them. One of the most dominant, the most wicked Jezebels I've ever come in contact with, like I told you guys before, I met through an ex of mine. It was a relative of his. And one of the things I noticed was that she used to love movies about, manipulation. Because a lot of times with men don't see female manipulation. Women, we see it, but men don't necessarily see it. And that's because men don't think like that. They don't typically think women think like that. So it was a movie I think called Monster-in-Law. And so this in-law of mine, she used to love that movie. Like, I don't care how many times we came to her house and what year it was, she had it in her DVD player and she would watch it on, and so in Monster-in-Law, the man's mother is a classic narcissist Jezebel personality. And his mother is sitting there and she's controlling him. I mean, she comes off as real sweet. She's a wealthy woman or what have you. So he doesn't, but she's doing little underhanded things to his girlfriend. And then when she finds out the girlfriend becomes a fiance, she takes it up a notch. And so the guy doesn't see it at first. And so it's like the girl, it's like, okay, how can I tell him your mama's doing this to me without it looking like me being the person trying to divide him from his mother or what have you. So the mother was trying to destroy their relationship. She was doing everything to destroy their relationship. But they see people as their property, so you have to go through them to get to someone that they've stolen the authority from. Even if you come in a group of females, you have to, in order for you to be friends with the other females who are under her control, you have to win her favor. You have to come in. You got to come in under her control. Number 13, they always play the victim. Always. A Jezebel will always play the victim. They will never, ever, ever cast themselves as the predator. They're always the prey. Dominant Jezebels can't. No, see, I'm just getting tired of people using me. I'm just getting tired. Passive Jezebels. I don't even know what I did to her. Like, we were. And you'll believe, now the passive Jezebel, they're more believable because they tend to be shy, introverted. They have their personality doesn't come off as dominant or what have you. But if you hang around them long enough, you'll find that they are always a predator. But when they get caught, they always fold up. They always fold up and they go into the fetal position. I just got to find another job. I just got to find another church. I don't even know. It's like I try with people. I try and you feel sorry for them. And then you bring them in and then they do the same thing to you. After so many years, it's like for a while you're like, nah, that ain't what I see. But after a while you're just like, no, she's narcissistic. She got these ways of what having. As soon as you cut her off, she plays the victim. She'll curl back up into the fetal position and she'll play the victim. Now that's the introverted, the shy Jezebel. But when you're dealing with the dominant one is more loud or what have you. But they're always going to play the victim. They like to project and deflect. They never will take responsibility. They will never say, I was wrong. Now they'll do that if they feel like they're caught and they feel like there's no way around it. But other than that, they will not take responsibility for their actions. They will always find some type of clause or something to say, this is the reason why I did what I did. They'll always find it. Number 14, they have to be the most important person in your life or else. They have to be the most important person in your life. So when you have a Jezebel, let's say you're a married woman and you have a husband and you got a Jezebelic friend. Your Jezebelic friend feels like she's supposed to have, and this is the whole entitlement thing. She feels like she's supposed to have a more important position than your husband. She does not like the whole concept or the idea of your husband having authority over you. As a matter of fact, she will turn into a feminist on your tail. You start talking about, well, he's the head of the home. Girl, please. I see, that's why I can't. See, y'all, you good. I couldn't do it or what have you. But their thing is, they don't mind you coming under their control. They don't like your husband having any measure of authority. They want to have the greatest power in your life. And I told you guys I was married, and I had this friend call me up one day, and she said, let me talk to my ex's name. And I was like, for what? And she was like, because I'm going to go off on him. And I was like, okay, obviously there was a line of miscommunication. What on Jezebel's Island would make you think it's okay for you to call and talk about you finna go off on my husband? The devil is an everlasting lie. And so what was that? That was a test of hers. It was a test of hers to see if she had that measure of authority in my life. And I'm like, girl, no, you are not finna call and go off on Neil about his husband over here. What did he do? And it was something dumb. It was something that she had done or what have you. It was something that it was just stupid. He hadn't even done anything wrong, but it wasn't really so much about him. It was more so, let me test our friendship. Because like God tells us to test the spirit, Jezebel are always testing you to see, do I have that kind of control in your life? Let me see. And so when they start noticing that they're losing control, if they feel like they had any measure of control, oftentimes they will try to get you to leave that person or what have you. They're very territorial. They feel like you're their property, you're my friend. So the word my takes on a whole new undertone. When they say my, that means property. You're my friend, you're mine, you're my son, you're my daughter, you're mine, what have you. But they will always try to make themselves the most important person in your lives. They feel like they need to be more important than your mother. They need to be more important than your children. They need to be more important than your spouse. It is not something that they will outright ask for. However, it is something that you will see them implying. It is something you'll see them testing along the way. And then when they don't get it, you're going to go through a Jezebelic punishment, meaning we're not speaking. Or they'll start acting funny or what have you. You go into punishment. And then they'll come back when they feel like you've learned your lesson, and they'll test to see if you've learned your lesson. If you have not learned your lesson, you go back under punishment. And if you have not learned your lesson, a lot of times they'll end a friendship because they refuse to have friendships where they don't have any rank. And the last one is they like to draw people in. We've already talked about that one, so I won't be too exhaustive with that, but they like to draw people in with a soul tie. They like to draw people in. So like I said, a Jezebel will go and you'll see her working on one person. And I keep saying her, but it's not just women, it's men as well. But they'll work on one person at a time, and an individual at a time. They'll take this particular woman and they'll work on being her best friend. And so they'll open up and tell her stuff about them. They'll ask questions to try to look like they're passive or submissive. They'll do everything to draw that person in and to create a soul tie. But as soon as they have that person under their control, as soon as they have that person where they want them, as soon as they have that person where they want them, and then they'll kind of toss the person. The person becomes just another standard person in their life. And so then they'll go and you'll notice that they're working on somebody else. And you'll notice that, okay, Sister Keisha, every time we come to work now, she hanging out with Sister Jane over there. She didn't normally hang with Jane, but now she hanging out with Jane. What's she doing? She working on Jane this week. So for the next few weeks, she's going to work on Jane. The next few weeks, she's going to be hanging out with Jane. We got to do lunch. We got to do this. She's going to work on Jane for that time. But as soon as she got Jane in, and Jane's thinking, oh my gosh, she's a really nice person. I consider her a dear friend of mine. And so Jane started believing that. She kind of tosses Jane to the side. She really doesn't have anything to do with Jane. Or she'll deal with her, but, the dynamics of the friendship changes. So now all of a sudden you see her, she's back there talking to, we'll say, Margaret. So now you see her with Margaret. She's not around Keisha anymore, and she's not around Jane so much. She's over there with Margaret or what have you. So you'll notice that she's doing rounds, and this is what wears her out, because she has all of these different people that she's trying to keep from creating a clique. Now she can't stop it. If you create a clique, she'll just join right on in. But she has all these different people, all these separate relationships that she's trying to build, and she doesn't like you guys coming together, so she wants to go work on this person and draw this person in, until when you get around Jezebel, you feel like I can tell her everything, because they seem to be really humble. You just like, I was raped. You were raped. And when it happened, the crazy part was, my body didn't respond. Like, and you go to telling them things about you, and they're just like, yeah, I know. And they'll start telling you even lower things. Like, I've never told nobody this. And next thing you know, you over there sharing all of your secrets, your plans, your future plan, everything with Jezebel. And it's just for them to draw you in and to get you to feel like, okay, now we created something, because I've told her stuff about me that I haven't told anybody else, or what have you. And so you feel like, okay, we got a friendship, we cool, that's my friend. Yeah, I even dare to think that she might even be a best friend of mine, or what have you. But then one day you come in and she acting funny, you're just like, okay. And that's when they deploy the spirit of confusion. Okay, let me look through my text messages with her. Did I say something? Maybe she mistook this text message. Maybe I should have sent a smiling emoji. I should have put a smiley face behind that, because I put an exclamation point, and maybe she took the exclamation point to mean that I was being mean. So now you feel like the text message you sent her was a week ago. Now you feel like you got to text her again. Hey sis, just wanted to let you know, I know that I said this last week, but I wasn't being mean. I wasn't doing that, because you're overthinking it. You're always trying to figure out, like, okay, why is she acting like that toward me? Let me free you up today. She does that with everybody. It's a tool of manipulation and control. The only people you won't see her doing that too much with are people who are in power and, whose position she wants. And so with them, she's squeaky clean. With them, she's, and this is an edge brush, y'all, but I'm going to pretend she's brushing the teeth. Oh, of course. Okay. Let me just say, you look magnificent today. Oh, what have you. With them, she's squeaky clean, but everybody else, she shows her fangs. But everybody else is like a whole different person. It's a whole different person, but they wear a mini mask. So this week, that was my thing. I'll probably stop and answer a few questions for you guys, but this week I just wanted to give you guys some characteristics of the Jezebel spirit. But characteristics of the Jezebel spirit, some of the things that you can look for, and if you find that you exhibit any of those characteristics, please remember, there are two things. You got to get deliverance, and not only do you need to get deliverance, you have to change your personality, because these are systems that the enemy has implemented. And so you're going to still, even after deliverance, exhibit the smell of Jezebel. You're going to still be tempted to manipulate people. You're going to still be tempted to keep your friends separate. You're still going to be tempted to act a certain way. You don't fall into that temptation. And so this is what you do. If you get free from a Jezebel, tell your friends, real friends, tell your pastor, tell your leaders, say, hey, I got free from a Jezebel spirit. If you see me acting a certain way, I'll give you permission to call me out. Tell me, pull me to the side, because I don't ever want to walk in that thing again. If you try to do things covertly, where you're trying to heal on your own, you're going to fall back into the trap, because you're going to find that those ways were useful to you. See, at one point, you were able to manipulate men. You were able to stare into the eyes of a man and be like, You were able to do that, and you're able to draw him in. And so you have to give up those wiles, which actually comes at the expense of your self-esteem. And God doesn't want you building your self-esteem off of the way he arranged your face. He doesn't want you building your self-esteem based on how you look. So yes, you have to give up you got to give it up. There are certain things, in order to stay free, you have to, these are your old ways. It's like when you break up with somebody, you got to give them their stuff back. When you break up with the devil, you got to give him his tools back. You got to give him all his stuff back. If you keep his tools in your shade, he's coming back for him, and he's going to bring 7 spirits more wicked than himself. And the last state of you're going to be worse than the first. So now you're no longer going to be looking in guys' eyes. You're going to be reading it up in their face. Next thing you know, you're going to be having your wig spinning on a married man's bedpost, because you're too busy trying to find some type of gratification, affirmation. You're trying to find somebody to tell you, and that voice never stops saying you're not pretty enough, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough. You got to understand, in his lifetime, at the end of the day, I have my responsibility from God. I have my rank from God. That's it. I'm grateful for what he's given me. I'm grateful for what he's entrusted me with. If he gives somebody else way more than me, I praise God for what she can be trusted with. I praise God. I'm applauding this sister. I'm happy for her. Why? Because God trusts her with something. You cannot live your life in comparison to other people. You cannot live your life like, I feel like it's not even right, that God will blow her up and give her this, how she got that. And one of the things I've heard Jezebel say is, I look better than her. Because when I was in the world, I hung around a lot of different people, and I've never been a person that cared about how you looked. I just felt like if you were cool, you were cool. So with that, I hung around a lot of women who were narcissistic, who were absolutely beautiful as well, and I got a chance to see how they thought. And a lot of times they were really into themselves. They had been blown up. And this is the reason I told you, sometimes your beauty can become your stronghold. Your beauty can become your stronghold. They would get so caught up in what people said about them that they deal with a lot of depression because it doesn't work. They're just like, I don't get it. Like, everybody tells me that I'm beautiful, but it's like nobody's trying to take me off of the market, and everybody keeps tossing me back because they don't understand that it's not your beauty that makes a man stick with you. When I was in the world, my friends didn't understand that, and they would ask me questions like, what are you doing to these men? And because I remember one of my friends said, Tiffany always had them fine men. And what are you doing to these men? So the question that they were really trying to ask me is, what is it that you're doing? Like, you must be having some type of wild sex with them. You got to be doing something for them to act the way that they act, because I feel like I look better than you. Comparison and what have you. I feel like this. And it's not something that people say out loud, but it's just really the way that they think. So what is it that you're doing? I'm like, I ain't doing nothing. So what about such and such? I'm like, I ain't never even had sex with a dude. Like, that was just the way he was, or what have you. But they're trying to figure out, like, what is it that you're doing? Is there some type of magic spell? Is there something that you're doing? It's like, no, you just dating a dude, or what have you. So like, again, I'll come to your questions in a minute, guys. But again, if you find yourself wrestling with that spirit within yourself, we're going to deal next week about how to get authority over that spirit. But if you find yourself wrestling with that spirit, you have to be honest with yourself. You're going to need deliverance, and you're going to need counseling. You're going to need deliverance, counseling, and accountability. I'm going to say it that way. You're going to need deliverance, counseling, and accountability. You're going to need deliverance to get the demon cast out. And you're going to need counseling so that we can deal with how the demon came in, and we can start, pulling that stuff down. And you're going to need accountability to make sure the demon doesn't come back. So when, your friends start noticing you exhibiting certain behaviors again, or your mentors notice you, sis, I think it's time for you to get back on the altar. It's time for you. And for me, I like to have people around me who tell me, Tiff, come get on the altar. I love it. I think it's time for you to get on the altar. I love it. Because for me, I may not know if I'm bound. I know that I've been bound by many things in my past. And I might not necessarily know if I'm bound again. And I appreciate people who will look at me and say, I think it's time for you to go vomit. I think it's time for you to go spit some stuff up and out, or what have you. Because if a devil found a door to get back in, I would much rather go get it out than for me to entertain it and maintain a certain perception with my friends. Or try to. So if you find yourself, you struggle with it, again, deliverance, accountability, and counseling. Deliverance, accountability, and counseling. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and answer your questions. I'm not going all the way to the top. I'm going to skirt around the bottom. So I'm going to start with Amanda's question. How is the Jezebel spirit causing men? Why was I a target? What do they see in me? Good question. Great question. It gets in men the same way it gets in women. That spirit can be inherited. If it was in the mother or the father of the man, typically he will inherit that spirit. Whenever you see that spirit in a family, it is typically inherited. And then a lot of times when the person, because you can resist it, you can have a demon, but you can resist it. When that person says, hey, I don't like my mom's personality, I don't like the different things my dad did. When they're resisting that spirit, typically what happens is that spirit they'll go through a lot of trauma. Because they're already skirting around the bottom because of where they were raised. They were raised in the bottom of thinking. So everybody around them tends to be in a certain range of thinking. And so for them, they'll constantly deal with the same types of people, and they constantly deal with hurt, rejection. And so what it does is it wears them down. It wears them down. Or if they get into sin, it wears them down. And then eventually that spirit starts to rise up because that demon starts telling you, I know how to handle this. I know how to handle that, or what have you. But it gets into men through trauma. It gets in, it's usually inherited, but it gets in through trauma. It gets in through some female breaking up with them. It was already there, but it got woke up by that particular female or what have you. But that's how it comes into men. You say, why was I a target? Typically, when you're a target of the Jezebel spirit, it can mean that you're a prophet, you are prophetic, you are an apostle, or that spirit runs in your family. If you're a prophet, Jezebel hates prophets, so she's always trying to kill the prophets. If you're an apostle, Jezebel is attracted to apostles. And the reason is kings were the equivalent of apostles in the Bible. Kings were the equivalent of apostles in the Bible, so they represent the highest amount of authority. So they tend to be attracted to apostles romantically. They tend to be attracted to apostles and stuff like that. So they're always trying to attach themselves to an apostle. If you're prophetic, of course, and then of course if it's in your family. So if it's in your family, then there's a scent that you carry. Like for example, if you had a mother who had a Jezebel spirit, you may be hosting an Ahab spirit, and Jezebel is married to Ahab. And so anytime Jezebel comes around somebody who has an Ahab spirit, you come across, they're attracted to you, they're drawn to you. And Jezebels, when they come into your life, they tend to woo you. So they'll come in. When they first come in, it is not the same picture you see once you soul tie yourself to them. When they first come in, they're very flattering, they're very giving, they're very loving. They'll give you the shirt off of their back. So this man comes in, he says, I am in love with you. Every crease on your face, I'm in love with. I know how you smile. I know your scent, your morning breath. I mean, I know we ain't slept together, but man, when I knocked on your door that morning, you came to the door, you had your morning breath. I'm intoxicated by it. So this man will buy stuff, do stuff for you. He will draw you in. And that's only because that's a spirit. They tend to do that in the beginning. They draw you in, and they got to make the relationship move really fast. We got to fall in love really fast. We got to make love everything need to happen real fast. And then once they draw you in, then they start to peel off their mask. They take the rate in which they take off the mask is determined by the strength of the soul tie they have with you. So if the soul tie is not so strong, if you are maintaining any measure of your authority, your confidence, they'll kind of peel the mask off slowly. But if you locked in, or you like Jodas, he got me feeling, you become crackheadish, and you just like, I can't live without him, they'll just go ahead and take off the whole mask, and they'll start showing off their narcissism right there. So you have to look at it. Are you a prophet? Are you an apostle? Are you prophetic? Or is the Jezebel spirit in your family? Is it in your family? If it's in your family, which is typically what they see, is usually the Jezebel spirit coming after you to either raise you up as a Jezebel, or to Ahab you, or to eunuch you. It's really to cut off your authority and to use you as a tool. So look into those different ways. Look into those different ways. You said, I have exhibited traits: distrust, suspicion. I fantasize, but I don't manipulate. I often withdraw from some family members because when I try to confront them, it's swept under the rug or switched on me. And so you got to look into that. I would say get counseling so you can see if that's a Jezebel spirit manifesting in you. Because and I'm not saying that this is a fact for you, but I can tell you from my experience with people with the Jezebel spirit, a lot of times they are unrealistic. So they do confront people in an unrealistic way. Now, it's good to confront people, but a lot of times they confront people in an unrealistic way. And when they don't get the result they want, they'll withdraw themselves from the people or what have you. So it's hard to say, like, just from the little bit that you have given, but I would just say definitely pray and talk to your pastor and say, study the Jezebel spirit to see, and just, am I exhibiting the behavior of the Jezebel spirit? I'm self-absorbed, but I don't mean to be. I'm often fearful and down. I was groomed by Jezebel and praying I'm not one. So if you were groomed by one, either you may have that spirit, or you may be bound by the Jezebel spirit. But if that's the case, for those of you who find that you are bound, please do not panic. It's not the end of the world. It's just a deliverance issue. You just got to learn how you're supposed to. You got to learn how to have normal, healthy relationships. You have to learn to accept no. You got to learn not to be moved by, like I've had to tell many of my friends, because so many people that I've come in contact with they come out of Jezebelic families, and I've had to tell them many times, because I can see they be scared to tell me no, and I'm like, sis, you can say no. I'm not going to punish you. I'm not going to be mad at you or what have you. But a lot of times, people who have been traumatized by the Jezebel spirit, they will withdraw to themselves. They don't, like, because they're afraid to, because they tend to be empathic. They tend to be empaths. Or what have you. They're really, really sensitive, and Jezebels like to draw energy from people like that. So one of the things I would tell you to do is, if you were groomed by one, you are either bound by that spirit. You may have an Ahab spirit, which is spirit of fear, where you have a measure of authority, but you've given it over to the devil. So you may have an Athaliah spirit. Athaliah is just like her mother. Or you could be, a eunuch. A eunuch is just somebody who has a measure of authority, not necessarily called to do anything great, but Jezebel just took off their penis, or castrated, made them impotent, meaning she took away their power. So get into a good godly church. If you're not already in church, go into a good godly church. Start, reading your Bible and just studying. Y'all hear me when I say this. If you find that these characteristics, if you're watching the video like, oh my gosh, like she named 20 things, and out of those 20, I see 12 of them that I can honestly say, and 4 of them are a question. If you find that you have that spirit, you probably picked it up through a generational curse. It's probably something that was passed down to you. You can get delivered. Don't panic on it. You can go through deliverance. What you have to do is, today you got the education about that spirit. So now you know its ways. You know different things that it does. You know the different temptations. When you attempted to manipulate people, or you attempted to separate, keep all your friendships separate, when you attempt to do all those things, you can say, hey, that's a Jezebel personality. You can go to the altar. You can go through deliverance, and then you don't give in through the temptation. When you feel tempted, you can say to your friends, hey, y'all, if y'all see me exhibiting any of these behaviors, tell me, because I'm not going to be like that. You get rid of the behaviors. When you get rid of the behaviors, then the Jezebel spirit has no place in you, or Satan has no place in you. Thank you. I'm coming down to look at your questions. If you don't have any questions, we're going to close out. Give me a second, guys. I have to come down and look. I have a question. Do you have any suggestions on how to heal from being targeted by the Jezebel spirit? I've encountered this spirit multiple times, and it ruined my self-esteem. Awesome. Yes. A lot of people who are prophets or prophetic, or people who have any measure of a calling, if you're creative, you're prophetic. But a lot of people have been traumatized by the Jezebel spirit. A lot of times people become reclusive as a result of what have you. So first and foremost, you have to take your authority back. Part of your authority is your trust. You cannot walk around being distrusting of people, because it takes a level of vulnerability to build any relationship. And I know that's scary, because that's been something God has had to deal with me. He has had to rebuild my confidence and what have you, one lie, one truth at a time, because of things that I've happened, because of the encounters I've had with Jezebels. And I've dealt with some high level Jezebels. I've dealt with I told you guys I was in an abusive marriage, so that was a Jezebel, what have you. And I've had time. I've dealt with stalking. I've dealt with a lot of different things. So the level of trauma that I walked in was astronomical. I'm not gonna even lie. I was walking in a certain level of trauma that so much so I wouldn't even go to a church. I didn't go to a church for 9 years because I just felt like everybody was gonna be the same way. So one of the ways that I started to heal was first you study that spirit. I got books, guys, called books. I got a series of books called Jezebelian. Jezebelian 1, how to identify the identifying the Jezebel Spirit, and Jezebelian 2. So I would recommend that y'all get those books, Jezebelian 1 and Jezebelian 2. Get those books so that you can get more information about the Jezebel Spirit. Number 2, when you come across Jezebels, you're going to have friends who have the Jezebel Spirit. Like if you try to make sure you never have a Jezebel in your life, you probably won't have that many friends, because I found a lot of people have those spirits, or they have the traits. They have certain different things, like the sickle cell trait. It was inherited. Their mother had a Jezebel, their dad had a Jezebel. So even though the demon is in them, or they have the trait for that demon, they haven't necessarily tapped into it yet. So I've learned that I can actually have friends that I've had friends that I know are bound. I know they're bound, but one of the things I don't do is let them Jezebel me. Like at the end of the day, you can't Jezebel me. And I will tell them, we'll talk about different things. We'll talk about Jezebel. We'll talk about demons, and I'll tell them. And they'll straight up ask me. I remember having a friend ask me one time. She said, "So do you think I got the Jezebel Spirit?" I said, "Yeah, I know you got it." And she's like, "Well," I was like, "I know you got it." What have you? But I'm honest with my friends. And so I'm honest so that they can go and get the freedom or what have you. And I'm not saying let me take you through deliverance. Go to your church and go to the altar, what have you. But you can have friends, but you just know the ways of Jezebel, which means you can say, "Hey, don't call me with that. I told you don't do that little witchcraft stuff on me. You got a problem with that." And I don't do that. And see, even when I'm dealing with people like that, I deal with them in segments. I don't deal, like, I can't be your best friend. We ain't talking every day. We ain't finna hang out like that, because I know that in order for us to do that, you're going to try to bring me under your control. However, if you're dealing with family members who are like that, you deal with people in, segments. You deal with people in just little episodes or what have you. But at the same time, when you deal with people, you're cognizant of your behavior, cognizant not so much of theirs, but of your behavior. You make sure you treat them with respect, make sure you treat them with love. But at the same time, if they start demonstrating Jezebelic tendencies, it's okay. And I think this is where people fail as Christians. A lot of times people get afraid to tell. No, it's okay to tell somebody, "Hey, listen, don't do that. Like you're over here playing witchcraft." And they're like, "How?" Okay, so you've done this and you've done that, and you have a tendency to do that or what have you. And I found that a lot of times people reach out and they'll say, "Yeah, like when you brought that up, it was true. So do you think that I have that spirit?" I'm like, "Well, go ask your pastor." If I feel like I know for a fact, I'll say, "Yeah," but if I'm not sure, I'll say, "We'll talk to your pastor. Your pastor is seeing you moving or what have you." But you want to study that. You want to get away from narcissism. That means don't be self-centered. One way that you can be selfless is go out and help, go feed the poor, do some things and stuff like that. And then you're going to have to let God rebuild your self-esteem. Don't put your worth in somebody's hands. That's one of the reasons that Jezebels don't do so well around me, because I will not put my worth in their hand. Like I just can't. I can't. It's just certain. I just can't. I don't put my worth. I don't put my value in their hands. So when they start playing tug of war with my worth, they say, I just feel like you need to do something different with your eyebrows. I'm like, yeah, you go learn how to do eyebrows. You come do my eyebrows. How about that? My eyebrows look just fine. So what am I doing? I'm saying you cannot be condescending with me. You can sit up here and say, "Hey sis, I feel like you do real good with your eyebrows, but you can watch some tutorials and stuff like that." Then you're trying to help. But sometimes some people are kind of backhanded or what have you. So I would say get my books, Jezebelian, Identifying the Warrior's Guide to Identifying the Jezebel Spirit, and Jezebelian 2, which is the Warrior's Guide to Defeating the Jezebel Spirit. Get as much information as you can about that particular spirit. Go through deliverance. Get into a good church home. Stay submitted. Yeah, that's it. They expose people a lot. Jezebels are exposed through their exposing of people. They are exposed through their exposing of people. So when they try to expose people, they typically expose themselves. People who have discernment, like, okay, let me say this. A person with discernment don't necessarily see the Jezebel spirit every time it's in operation. For those of you who have gone and you left churches because you were like, I just felt like the pastor should have saw that Jezebel. No, they're not going to necessarily see it all the time, because some issues are issues of the flesh and not necessarily Jezebels or what have you. But you have to just sit back and trust God in the process. You just got to sit back and just, you do your part in your family, workplace, church, wherever it is that you're going through. And then always understand that Jezebels don't hide. This is the reason why when it comes to a relationship, you're supposed to take your time and pray. Because they don't hide very long. I say the devil is patient, but his demons are not so patient. They don't do well in hiding because they're always looking to express themselves. They're always looking to have something to do. And so you just have to take your time. Don't be in a rush. The way that a lot of women get into relationships with Jezebels is because they allowed to do it to rush the relationship. Or to the men, a lot of men get in a relationship with Jezebel because they get so caught up in the crack of her tail. They're like, she got a nice butt. Or what? They get so caught up in her breast or they get so caught up in some part of her or what have you. They get caught up in her words or what have you. And they allow her to rush the relationship. Why? Because we like the feeling. It's like spending money. You get your income tax check and it's a good feeling when you out there buying all that stuff and you like, and they swiping your stuff and you just feeling good walking through the mall with your sunglasses on. No, you don't need sunglasses inside of it, but you feeling good. It feels good in that moment. But eventually you get the credit card bill. Eventually, you're like, okay, or you go look at your account. But don't focus so much on them being exposed. That's why you have to forgive them. See, when you don't forgive Jezebel, they have power over you. I told you guys before when I was married to this guy, and he had a family member who had the Jezebel spirit, and that woman was doing all types of wicked things. It was like I would sit back thinking to myself, like, God, you just gonna let them, you see me doing right or what have you. But what God did was, and I remember I said, she always trying to break us up, and do she not even see she failing? She not succeeding. She's not gonna steal and break nothing up. And God immediately rebuked me. He was like, yeah, that wasn't her assignment. It was to break up your marriage. Her assignment was to get you in unforgiveness. She succeeded. And I was like, oh crap. I realized I was I was really in the center of unforgiveness because, in all out honesty, if I could be transparent, I had gotten to such a dark place that I would have welcomed a call about her being hit by a helicopter that fell out of the sky. That's how bad I could, because she called every day and was attacking my name, and I just didn't understand. It's like, I'm not even bothering this woman. Why is she so obsessed? She was obsessed with me, and I couldn't understand it. So yeah, when you don't worry about them, you just do your part. You forgive them, and you do your part. They always expose themselves, one, and two, they don't hide very long. I've never seen a case where a Jezebel got away. I've yet to see that. I have yet to see that. Who was that said, I have never seen the righteous forsaken. And it's the same with me. I've been on this earth for 42 years. I have yet to see a Jezebel get away with her way. I've seen Jezebels get away for years. I've seen them get away for a decade or so, but they don't get away from it. It always, and it's usually when everybody just kind of leaves it alone. When nobody's it always comes back down, because y'all got to hear this. There's a season of sowing and there's a season of reaping. Jezebels, just like everybody else, always have their season of reaping. And when they begin to reap, I'm telling you, you'll be sitting there like, oh Lord, just have mercy just have mercy, God. Just have mercy. Because some Jehu's going to come along at some point, or, something will happen. But they always have their season of reaping. But you cannot focus on when they're going to get it back, because you can't glory in their pain. See, God said, if you turn and you look at the wicked, and if he starts to punish the wicked, and this is scripture, but you start, enjoying them, he said he will turn his attention. He will turn away from them. So that means he'll pull off his wrath. So the thing is, you can't focus on, like, if somebody who hurt me all of a sudden starts going down, I can't be like, oh, finally, because that means that spirit now has gotten in me. I can't be like, oh my gosh, Lord, you're so good. Thank you for bringing them down. Thank you for hurting them. They hurt me so bad. Oh no, I have to forgive the person. That way I can intercede on their behalf. I can say, God, in the name of Jesus, they forgive them, for they didn't understand what they were doing. It was just, they were broken. They were hurt. God, please forgive them. Father, have mercy on them. Father, have mercy. And he's going to decide whether he wants to have mercy. Sometimes he doesn't give them mercy. He gives them a measure of mercy, but mercy don't look like mercy. When it's hitting them, it's like, oh, everything is breaking. What's going on? God is like, and he's like, no, I know the amount of pressure that's needed to break them, to get them to a point where they say, I have been manipulative, controlling, I've hurt people, I'm sorry. They never, and I say this with my whole heart, I've lived long enough, they never ever get away with it. Ever. But you have to forgive them, because if you don't forgive them, you pick up that spirit. Because remember I told you, Jezebel's get in through trauma. And if you don't forgive them, you pick up that spirit. I call it the vampire syndrome. They bit you, and eventually you become a vampire. Eventually you become a vampire. So you just have to forgive them. Thank you, sis. Can a wife give it to her husband through sex? We've heard of sexually transmitted demons. It gives a demon access to a person, but Jezebel is not necessarily going to want to transfer from the wife to the husband. It's going to want to use the wife to take authority over the husband, to usurp his authority. So it doesn't do very well by getting into the husband's life. Now, it'll try to take authority over the man. They already got a soul tie, so it has a bridge to cross over, but it's not necessarily interested in getting inside of him. It's more so interested in getting her to rise to a level of authority, because if she does, it causes him to lose respect with his children. It's castrating. It castrates him or makes him impotent or what have you. Not so much as impotent in the bedroom, but impotent spiritually. So even though demons get access, we call them STDs, sexually transmitted demons, even though they get access through sex, they don't necessarily want to transfer to a person, because especially in a husband-wife situation, the wife has access to the husband 24/7, and so it doesn't have to necessarily transfer. It's just going to try to use her to get her husband into subjection. What if a prophetess has the Jezebel spirit? That's not uncommon. That's not unheard of. You just have to pray for them. Now, it could be a true prophet. True prophets can be bound. As a matter of fact, people who are prophets and apostles, they are typically raised by Jezebels. They typically come up in homes where there's a Jezebel spirit, and that's where they get their training. God will throw you in a fight, but that's typically where they get their training. This is how a lot of them learn to identify the Jezebel spirit. And so it's not uncommon. But if you are in a church and you know that the pastor or the prophetess has the Jezebel spirit, then I would say I wouldn't go to their church. That would be a church I wouldn't. Yeah, that's a church I wouldn't go to. But if I don't go to that church and I know it's a prophetess over this particular church that goes, I'm just going to pray for them or what have you. But I'm not going to come and post up a video and say, all right, guys, we're about to go live. All right, I need you guys to pay attention. So here's a video I want to expose or what have you. No, I'm not going to necessarily do anything like that. So you just pray. You just pray for the person's deliverance. You don't pray for their downfall. You pray for their deliverance. And sometimes the deliverance is their downfall. Yeah, morning breath. 1 second, guys. I'm coming on down for your questions. Oh gosh, I did not know y'all had that many questions. Hold on. Yeah, Jezebel 1 and 2. Okay, 1 second. All right. Yeah, Athaliah spirit, Athaliah. It's pretty much the Jezebel spirit and a sister brother realm. That's all the way I can best describe it. It acts just like the Jezebel spirit. It's pretty much the same as the Jezebel spirit. The only difference is Athaliah killed off her brothers and sisters, so it's more competitive. It's always coming against brothers and sisters trying to usurp authority. I deal with the spirit of fear a lot. I feel fearful around people. Can I say no? I'm afraid a lot. I read the Bible, go to church, and sometimes people walk over me. How do I deal with this? That sounds like the Ahab spirit. So you may have you may have a Jezebel in your family that took your authority. You have to educate yourself about that spirit, and you're going to have to take your authority back. That's going to be done through prayer. You walk in that authority out. you saying no and then dealing with the consequences. When you deal with the consequences, you see it won't kill you. I don't mind telling people no. I don't mind telling people no, but the Ahab spirit was real strong. My mom was real passive. And one of the things growing up, that ticked me off when I was growing up. I couldn't stand it. So I would get in trouble all the time because I tried to say no on her behalf. That was me usurping authority. It showed I had a demon. And so one of the things that you have to do is you just got to tell people no. And I used to tell my mom, I said, Mom, be working 2 jobs and time. Mom, just say no. You ain't got to do all that. Mom, just say no. Or what have you. And I can honestly say this, with my mom passing, I'm going to say this. My mom was 62. She's 194. Yeah, she was 62 years old when she passed. I genuinely believe this with my whole heart that if my mom had walked in her authority, she would still be here. I do believe that because my mom was passive her whole life, so she gave away her authority. God gives us a measure of authority. That authority is set to protect you. And so you can start having health issues and problems just because you're giving away something God gave you and you're letting demons walk in. When you give your authority away, you're not giving it to people. You're giving it to the demons that are in the people. So one of the things that you have to do is you just got to, first and foremost, get away from the Jezebels that are around you because they're constantly robbing you of your authority. Pray, repent, ask God to give you the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding you need. Go get deliverance. And start walking in your authority. Somebody calls and say, hey, I need you to babysit these kids tomorrow. No. Hey, I need you to come clean up my house. No. You just practice saying no. You say yes when you want to say yes. But you practice saying no, and you have to keep doing that. Now, are you going to be punished for it? Yes. Let me say this so nobody falls off. You will be punished for saying no. If you're surrounded by Jezebels, you will be punished for saying no. That means that they're going to stop speaking to you. They're going to start acting funny. Come Thanksgiving, you have nowhere to go eat because your family didn't invite you over. You probably get threats from family members and stuff like that. But the thing about it is, that's the price of taking back your authority. They can't do anything. And so I will much rather sit at a table by myself and cut my food up in peace and eat, and then be sitting at Jezebel's table. And when you keep walking in your authority, trust me when I tell you, you cannot give your authority away again. Once you get used to walking in your authority, you're not going to give it away. Because then you start realizing when God starts opening your eyes to all that stuff, you start seeing how the devil was robbing you of your money, how he was taking your peace while you were dealing with issues in your body. So a lot of times people who are empaths, they're very sensitive introverts or something like that. They start having problems with their nervous system. They start having all types of problems because they keep giving their authority away to Jezebel. And Jezebel makes you feel like she does a better job behind the wheel of your authority than you do. You got to stop believing that lie. Here's the thing. I am designed to fail until I learn to pass. So that means that I'm not created. God created me, but because of sin, I'm imperfect. So I'm going to make mistakes. So if I'm doing something and I make a mistake, I'm learning from that. I don't need to give my authority to Jezebel to keep me from making a mistake. And now she over there making a mistake. Oh, I'm sorry, girl. All right. So this is what you're going to be doing. You go, and I don't need to do all that. I walk in my authority. I deal with the many giants, the Goliaths that I have to deal with in this life. I deal with them because they make me stronger. They make me wiser. I don't run to a cigarette. I don't run to alcohol. I don't run to drugs. I don't run to men. I just sit there and I have to face my giants until they shrink. I got to face my giants until they shrink. And so that's one of the things you have to do is you got to learn. I got to face this. I'm getting threats, for this. I got to face it. And I don't like it. It's scary, but I got to face it. Yeah, I go to church and say, hey, can I get some prayer from y'all? Get prayer. But I got to face whatever it is. And when I face it head on without me running and getting under a man, without me running and getting on some drug or getting drunk, without me running to my friends or even giving my authority away to Jezebel, what is it? It teaches me the power of God. It teaches me that, you know what? Greater is he who is in me than he who is in the world. It teaches me that you have a measure of authority. You have the sword in your mouth. And so this is the thing that we have to do. One of the issues is we live in a microwave generation. So we don't like fear. We don't like threats. We don't like anything. So we'll run and we'll give our authority away to anybody who seems to manage it better than us. No, you have to take your authority and you got to deal with stuff head on. And it ain't easy, it ain't fun. But boy, when I tell you, when it hit, it don't have the impact you thought it would. You like, that's all you got, devil in the name of Jesus. You start learning your authority. So I would say, get some books on Jezebel. You watch videos all over YouTube about the Jezebel Spirit, the characteristics, deliverance from the Jezebel Spirit. If your church does deliverance, go to the altar, get deliverance. If they don't, go to wait till they have a conference in your area where a deliverance minister is coming to your area. Go and get whatever deliverance you need to get. Study it, and then walk in your authority and be willing to pay the price. Hear me when I say this, and I'll move on to the next question. When you pay the price, when people start punishing you for telling them no, by not speaking, by acting funny, when they start, it is not the end of the world. It is not the end of the world, because I can't succeed under them. I can't succeed under their control. God won't bless me under their control. So in order for me to win, I have to come from under their control anyhow. So let them be mad. Let them be mad. My phone right now, if I was to leave this camera on, my phone right now don't ring that much. My family don't call me like that. You think I care? No, because at the end of the day, while I love them, I'm not their slave. I ain't going to be nobody's dog. And I would much rather be alone than to be a slave to Jezebel. I'd much rather be alone. I walk in my authority. I walk in that authority that God gave me. I'm not doing that. I don't feel like it. I don't mind doing that. But it took me a while to get to this spot, because I've lost people. And I didn't have that great a family anyway, because Jezebel Spirit divided my family severely. But I didn't have that many people in my life. So the people that I had, I cherished them, and I tried to hold on to them for dear life. But I was almost losing my life trying to hold on to people. I ended up, always in some type of abusive situation. And I had to start calling stuff for what it was and say, that's not right. I'm going to get off here, guys. I got a few more questions, but I got to get off here because I got a class at 9 o'clock. But I had to learn to say, that's not right. And I had to walk that out. Can you please talk about solitude? It doesn't have to be today. I'm looking forward to hearing this in the future. Most definitely will, sis. How do you overcome loneliness as an introvert? I have amazing people in my life, but feel bad because I'm introverted. Stop feeling bad about it. Stop feeling bad about it. You are who you are. God designed you how He designed you. I love the people in my life dearly. I promise I do. And sometimes I wish I was more supportive. I wish I was many things. But at the end of the day, it's just how I'm wired as an introvert. And if I get out too many times, if I went out as many times as my friend, I would be the meanest person you ever met. Because after I'm out so long, I get zapped. When I'm in traffic, I get zapped. The Georgia traffic, I get zapped. My energy levels be like, I'd be like, so yeah, just take the time out and make peace with it. I'm an introvert. And just try to push yourself to do more things, of course, so that you can go out and be with your friends, support them. But I can't, I got some workaholic friends. I got some friends out here doing some great things. And while I support them, I can't come to every event. It's draining to me and what have you. And thank God I have friends who understand that, who don't get mad at me about that. So I would tell you, try to support as much as you can, but and try to come out as much as you can, but you don't beat yourself up when you know your body. Like for me, I know if I get out and I come out like my friends want me to, I'm probably not going to be any good for them. I'm probably going to have an attitude. I'm going to be zapped or what have you. So I need time to come home and recharge, especially if I've had a busy week or what have you. Yeah, I would say, Beauty, read the book again so that you can constantly stay on top. Yeah, it's Jezebelion. Jezebellion. My mom is a covert narcissist. I have suffered physical, verbal, and emotional, I'm going to say, abuse by her flying monkeys. Flying monkeys? Flying monkeys is? My health has suffered greatly. How do I honor her as a Christian? It's not so much how you honor her. It's more so how do you get out of her grip. See, because you give people honor by not beating them up or cursing them out and, talking bad about them. But sometimes some people are so toxic that I don't care if they're I don't matter. Some people you just got to get away from. Some people I'm sorry. Because I know a lot of times we like to preach this, stay with people. No, some people you got to get away from. And so this is what I tell people all the time when it comes to a relationship. This is what God taught me with my family. I had to get delivered. I had to get the beam out of my eye. I had to get delivered from every demon that I had. And one of the things that I had to do, once I got delivered from all of my demons, I had to create healthy relationships and space for healthy relationships. In order for a person to have a relationship with me, they can't have the old relationship. So when they're ringing them old doorbells, I'm not answering. When they're doing all that, I'm not answering. That time is over with. You got to come over here and have a healthy relationship with me. Otherwise, we get off the phone. I'm not dealing with you. You got to have a healthy I'm not having no toxic relationship with nobody. I'm sorry. I'd just much rather be alone. And it took me to finally get to that spot. And I now understand why God pulled me away from people for a season. Why he pulled me away for so long. He put me in a cave and he allowed me to see that being alone wasn't the worst thing at that time in my life, because I had to get delivered from a lot of me and a lot of people that were around me. And so the thing about what I would tell you to do is, first and foremost, go through whatever deliverance you have to, learn about the Jezebel spirit, get books about the Jezebel spirit, have a conversation with your mother, tell her, hey, this, from this point on, I'd like to have a healthy relationship with you. No more cursing me out, no more of this, no more of that. And what have you. And then you giving her a choice. You giving her an opportunity to have a relationship. Now, if she call you and curse, hello, you mother, click. Who said this is not dishonor hanging up the phone? I don't have to take that. I don't have to take being abused. You sit back and say, no. So I'm drawing a line of demarcation. She call again, click. She called me again. I ain't talking to her. When she calls, she likely send a text, hey, you MF, I'm blocking. I'm not dealing. You have family, they're going to get it too. At the end of the day, they will come to the understanding, to have a relationship with me, it has to be functional. I will not have a dysfunctional relationship with anybody. I don't care who you are. Because at the end of the day, I'm not going to pay the price for your dysfunction. Now, you can have a functional relationship. This is what a lot of people don't realize. You can have a functional relationship with dysfunctional people because they can control their demons. Most people are not possessed. They can control their demons. And so that means that they can make a choice. That means that even though they're tempted to call you and cuss you out or start a mess, they get to choose not to do so. And so for me, I make them invoke their choice. You can have a relationship. We can have a relationship. But at the end of the day, you're not going to call my phone. And I was telling a sister in Christ today, I said, my phone is dry. My family don't call me. It's very slick. They don't call me like that because I have rules. And I have different things. It's certain things I'm not going to tolerate. You ain't going to come to my house and I don't listen to certain music and you're going to go blast it into my house. You're not going to come over here and be like, mother effer. And I'm like, no, you ain't going to call my phone with no mess. I don't do he say, she say gossip stuff. I don't do that kind of stuff. So I draw a boundary and I enforce that boundary. So that's how you deal with a narcissist. Because if you don't deal with them, your health will continue to deteriorate. And they're taking your power. That's the reason you lose your health, is because you've given away your authority. You got to take your authority back. Tell them no and take your distance and not be worried about them. My sister's an arc and operating out of the Jezebel spirit, and I called her to speak to her pastor, but her pastor refused to speak to me. Well, yeah, that's out of order for you to call to talk to her pastor. You don't need to call and talk to her pastor about her behaviors. It's up to her to choose to change. For me, I got family members. I love them dearly, and I love to see them on the other side. But at the end of the day, they get to choose whether they want to be crazy or they want to be sane. If they choose to be crazy, they just don't have access to me with the craziness. But I'm not going to call, their job, their pastor, or anybody else, because even if the pastor confronts them, then it's going to be out of order. So I would dare to say this: for you have to be very careful, because that sounds like a Jezebelic move. When you call somebody's pastor to expose them, to say, hey, she like this and she like that, that's out of order. Because you right then and there, you're trying to control the will of another human being, which is witchcraft within itself. You just have to let people make their choice. I can talk to a sister and say, hey, you can't do this and you can't do that. If she chooses to do that, The ball is now in my court. I get to choose whether I want to keep dealing with her. I get to choose. And so right then and there, a person makes a choice, then I make a choice. This is the way the game plays. They make a choice, I make a choice. They make a choice, I make a choice. If I don't like their choices, and if I feel like it's affecting me in a negative way, if it's impacting me in a negative way, then I can separate myself from their choices. I don't have to deal with their choices. But sometimes because we want to have the person in our lives, then we'll try to get them, we'll try to force them. And I've seen wives do this with their husbands a lot. We'll try to force them into changing, which is Jezebel within itself. So I would just tell you, that's something you owe her an apology for. Honestly, regardless of where she is spiritually, that's something you owe her an apology for. Anybody in my life who attempts to control me in any measure would be a history lesson. Because at the end of the day, you have to give people the room, the space to repent. God gave Jezebel space to repent. My mom is a convert. Okay, we read that one. Forgiving Jezebel is so hard, so hard. Not necessarily. The only time I found that it was hard for me to forgive Jezebel is when I stayed connected to him. When I put distance between me and them, or you can either disconnect from some of them so toxic you have to disconnect, and then there were other ones you just put a certain amount of distance. I don't have trouble forgiving them because they're not affecting me with their mess. But if you bring Jezebel close, it's a snake. It's gonna keep biting you, and yeah, you're gonna keep dealing with the venom. But if you put them at a distance, like if I come across a Jezebel, I don't necessarily have to bring her close to me. I can keep her at a distance and what have you. So I'm not mad when she does Jezebelic things because she's far. So she doesn't affect me. So people I found have a tendency to get mad at Jezebels and because they're they're still trying to hold on. We got to have a relationship. You got to do right. And they try to hold on, and while they're holding on, they keep getting bit. I just got hit with a Jezebel today. Didn't see this message. I know. Amen. Mercy on Jezebel. Okay. Alright. Ignore bro, man. Don't we always have to have thankfully they hid this guy's comments. Report. I don't know why we always have to have somebody who's got and that was a Jezebel. Jezebels like to hide behind keyboards. Give me a second. Alright guys, I'm going to answer 2 more questions. I do apologize if I don't get to your question, but I really gotta get ready for my other call. Thank you, Sister Kenyatta, for the seed. For everybody who's sown a seed, thank y'all. If I haven't mentioned you, thank you. Okay, let me come down. I'm trying to get to all of them, but I don't know. I get beat up with flying bruises by her flying monkeys. Flying monkeys? Sis, I think, yeah, flying monkeys? I don't get that. It just sounds like if you're talking about some spiritual flying monkeys or something like that, then you are really in need of deliverance. Do you know about the occult? What months have the highest witchcraft? I feel attacks higher at certain times. Yes, typically around I think the end of September all the way up to January is the highest months for the occult with witchcraft and stuff. My close friend told me she was in a dark place and she is disappointed that I'm not there for her. She's not talking to me now. Yeah, and that's what typically happens when you're dealing with bound people, is they expect you to come into bondage with them, and if you don't, they feel like you haven't proved yourself as a friend. So I just leave her there. Because if you want to come out, you come. I can lead you into the light, the joy that I'm in. I can come and support you, but I don't have to come and be depressed with you. What does it mean to trust God? It means to read the word, study the word, and to do what the word says. It means that everything that God says he will do, you trust that he will do it, even though that it doesn't look like it, even though your situation may say otherwise. It's really having faith in God. Thank you. Honor Intelligence is excellent. Yes, definitely. Can't wait for your review. I feel so much better that people are not really calling me. I'm even more productive now. Yes, yes. Oh gosh, when I got a lot of people in my life, I was like, Lord, I became even more productive. I found people are really energy stealers. Thank you, Tiffany. I'm out of her grip. No more black eyes and bruises on. I feel afraid talking about God in front of my family because they don't expect that from me. And that right there, if you're afraid to own him before a man, he'll be afraid to own you. If you're ashamed to own him before a man, he will be ashamed to own you before your Father in heaven. So you got to break that. I was almost choked to death the last time her husband, who was a very nice guy, helped peel that person off me. Then they all shame me for, yeah. That sounds like a family you may have to disconnect from. I was calling her pastor to ask for prayer for our family and that she make the right decision. Yeah, you can ask for prayer, but don't say, hey, and pray that my sister make right decisions, because it's almost calling her out. It's pretty much passively saying that she's not making right decisions. So, because you got to think about it, why didn't you call your pastor? So when you're calling her pastor, it's almost like you're trying to make her look bad, or what have you, or trying to give him your perception of her. So if you call and say, first and foremost, I wouldn't call somebody's pastor and say, pray for my family. I'll talk to my pastor and say, pray for my family. And if you don't have a pastor, then you go to the church. And then, you can say, hey, pray for us, or what have you. But calling him, knowing that that's her pastor, is kind of, it's really questionable. Be honest with you. So I can tell you from my standpoint, it's questionable, because my family is the type of people that'll do some stuff like that. My family would call my pastor. If I was dealing with half of them, they'll call anytime they get offended or what have you, and they'll try to make you look bad. I remember I hung up on my mom once because she was being mean, and then I felt bad. Now I feel good. Yeah. Hi, I just now tuned in. My ex is narcissist and continues to drag me to court for custody, even though he can't take care of our sick child. What should I do? Stay in prayer, keep fasting, and trust God. Don't worry about it. Don't argue with him or what have you. Just, and don't give him any measure of authority. I have a friend in Christ who always quotes me the word honor thy father and thy mother. And I hear that quote online from a sister that says, your enemies are those of your own household. I have a friend in Christ who always quotes me the word honor thy father and I hear a quote online from a sister that says, your enemies of your own household. Yeah, you honor your parents, but I think a lot of times people have misunderstanding of honor. Which scripture do I apply? I honestly don't understand the question, sis. Yeah, you just pray. I'll just say pray. I don't really understand the question, so I can't answer it. Flying monkeys are people they're messengers. Like when she sent a message to Elijah. I'm assuming Elijah, somebody is in your family. Yeah, Jezebels tend to use flying monkeys or APAS is a term in context of narcissistic abuse. Oh, there are people who act on behalf of a narcissist to a third party, usually. Okay, thank you for telling me that. And so, yeah, Jezebels always use people as tools. We talked about that. They always use people as tools, so they always have people in their bag. And so when I'm dealing with, if I'm dealing with somebody's tools, I'm going to cut them off as well. I'm going to tell them, don't call my phone with no mess. I'll block them or what have you. Thank y'all, because I had never heard that term before. All right, I got to get off of here, guys. I love y'all. I got to get ready to go on to this other call. I will talk to y'all soon. I pray y'all were blessed by the message. Of course, if you want to sow a seed, go to tiffanybuckner.com. If this message blessed you, I will be back next week, and we'll be talking about how to overcome the Jezebel spirit. All right, guys. Love you.